Let people know that I am live. Send that out. Send that out. Send out. Is there a going live section here? There is a self-promo in Hurricane's Discord. Fantastic. Is there a self-promo? There is not. Hello, hi Tegan. Why isn't... Oh, there it is. Okay. The on-screen chat loaded before... You see my face? Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Uh-oh. That's going to be a problem. I forgot to turn off the redeems. I'm glad you can see my face. It means it is working. For a minute there it wasn't, and I was really concerned. Creator dashboard. Oh no, you're redeeming things. I can't do anything about that now. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? I do not want to see shit right now. Twitch. You refunded it, relax. No. Raglan can waste his money if he wants to. That's on him. I was just hoping I could get to it before everyone else did. There we go. Turn all that off. Okay. Taken care of. Imagine not having a voice-activated toggle to turn off your redeems. I saw that video, and I was like, no, not really for me. Lord knows that I would fuck it up somehow. Okay. Close down that. Now I get back to spamming everyone with information about what I am doing. And then in Ragland, subjects live, here we are. My kingdom for an automatic spam option, please. Hi, Pixel. Welcome to the stream. You're gonna go shower. Go shower. Stop smelling bad. Go be clean. For fuck's sake. All right, drop it in there. Rude. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I'm simply built different. I would simply have already showered. Rowie. Yeah, no, I fucking said it. I fucking said it. All right, who pinged me? Oh, I keep forgetting that I did in fact set up an automatic bot for one of my Discords, so never mind. You just sat down to working out, never mind. Hi, Onslaught, welcome to the stream. Hello. Yeah, you spent time to come say hello to little old me, and this is how I repay you. I see how it is. Yes, so... No starting string, no fancy music playing, no, I didn't call you smelly, I just said you smelled bad. There's a difference. Highlights? I don't get that. It's the same thing. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, no, so once again, we are doing an IRL stream. I am doing the very Minecraft VTuber thing of me by not playing Minecraft or being a VTuber. And I'm showing off my real face because I have a couple of things that I need to show you. Now, the problem was, this is the same camera that I used for Coop Cakes back when this was a baking channel. Can you tell I have ADHD? This channel has been so many things over the past 5-6 years. This is the same camera that I used back when I started Coop Cakes. So it's a stupid cheap Amazon camera. It's a webcam that I got a tripod and a little cinch to attach it to. So it's a webcam that's supposed to attach to a laptop, but there's a little grip holding it upright. And then I have the wire going down. I have an extender on the USB wire in order to make it actually reach the tower to connect. It's a USB camera. I had two previously. The smaller one, as you all will famously recall, repeatedly got knocked over by Brisket and bashed around. So it is no longer with us. Rest in peace. The problem is I didn't realize it was no longer with us until I tried setting it up. I wanted to do a two-camera system where one was my face and one was a down viewer's view of the book. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to physically hold the book up and show you page by page. This is great content. This is going to be an amazing way for you to experience this. Because we do not have an overhead. If this becomes a regular thing, if me doing IRL book reviews for TTRPGs becomes a regular thing, I will invest in a new camera. For future reference, you can use a phone into OBS for the same thing. Possibly, yes, but my phone is shit and I'm not really good at charging it. So I will need to invest in some sort of over-the-head camera majig if this becomes an issue, a thing that we do recurringly. So, for those of you who don't have any context for why I'm dangling this game guide for Paper Mario for the N64 around, LMAO, gotta charge your phone. Never. You cannot make me. My wife gets so upset. She gets so stressed out, right? She's like, if my phone goes below 80, I panic and I have to plug it in immediately. And I'm over here scrolling Twitter endlessly like, oh, 80? I look at my phone, it's at 2. And I'm like, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. I can also wreck some boom arms if you want. Maybe. Not for an actual microphone, because I have no plans on updating this just yet. See, I keep my phone charged, but that doesn't mean I look at it. 34% currently. That's fine. You're good. You're good for a couple hours then. There's no problem. There's no problem at all. 19%. Wonderful. You know what? Let me actually look at my phone. What is it at? Oh, it's at around 20%. A nice round 20%. And it's going to be 80 degrees in St. Augustine today. Fantastic. Okay. 58%, but you're at work, so you can probably plug it in at your desk and you're fine. Anyway, for context, last week, literally 1 week ago, I did an IRL stream where I showed off my Ttrpg collection, and we rated our books, my books rather, from least to most sexy, and it got really down to the wire there at the very last. Politely eat shit with your 80 degrees. I live in Florida, my dude. This is the coolest it's been since, I want to say, May. It's been fucking boiling until just now. 80 is nice and balmy. It's nice and balmy. But I was raising money for this book. So to give you guys a quick spiel, I'm a major fan of Paper Mario for the N64. I play it at least once yearly. I am on my, I think it's 22nd or 21st consecutive playthrough at the moment. And I just got to chapter 7. I forgot we did daylight savings, thinking you're an hour earlier than I expected. Hi, Susie. Hello. Does that mean you can stay an hour later? You can stay up a bit later? No, you just had daylight savings time, so you're probably exhausted. I'm sorry. But yes, I love the game so much. So much. And previously, actually I don't have it with me now, you guys had actually donated to help me buy the Nintendo Power Prima guide to Paper Mario 64. There were 2 guides that were printed in North America. The first was the one that was successful. It was put out by Nintendo Power itself in relation with Prima. And the second one was not so successful. This is the Brady Games guide. And this one is absolute shit. This one is absolute shit. It's not a good guide. And it sold like shit, so not a lot of them were made. As a result, because people didn't value this and so few were made, this is super rare. Unlike the Prima Guide, which has various PDF scans floating around the internet, no one on the internet, or at least no one that has survived the scourge of time, there's no surviving evidence other than the cover of this book being circulated around that this book exists. There's no scans of the internals. There's barely any information on like when it was published or who published it. An $80 piece of shit. Absolutely. This was $80 on eBay. This was the first time I have ever seen this book listed on eBay. And not only was it the first time I ever saw the book listed on eBay, the lister actually took some time to take photographs of a couple of the internal pages. I've been looking for proper documentation of this for the last 5 years, and this was the first time I had ever seen the design of the inside of the book. So naturally, I freaked out and I told everyone in my Discord, and they're like, "Oh, we should donate for it. We'll donate for it." So I put it up there, and I'm like, "I'll do a talking thing. I'll see if I can't raise at least half of it, and I pay the other half myself." You guys blew it out of the water in like the first 45 minutes. You guys, it's a Paper Mario, amazing. Twitch app auto-selected 180p. I thought my eyes weren't working. My camera quality is bad, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But no, you guys, thank you so much. You made me so happy with this stupid fucking book. My wife also paid in patience because she had to sit and listen to me autistically rant about this for the entire week. It looks pretty bad. No, this thing is beat up. This thing is beat up. Just the front cover. You can see there's some chew marks. There's a bunch of bends. Oh, the video quality? Yeah, no, sorry. The book is fine. No, I stream in 480p. I can't get anything better going right now. My internet is so bad. This is the only, unless you want like an hour's worth of lag delay, if you want me to be able to talk to chat, you have to sacrifice the visual quality. Just listen to my beautiful mic, which is also not very professional. Rest in fucking pieces. I stream in 480p, but also visibly on my screen, the camera quality is bad. I need a better camera. I need a better mic. I've been doing this for 5 years, and it still looks like this. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Well, a lot of things, but mostly. I treat it like a hobby, and yet I treat my hobbies like jobs, and yet I don't bother to do the things that would make me successful at my job. So, why don't you use those donation goals? It's so much easier to convince you guys to give me money if it's smaller and manageable. If I ask for like $300 for like a better microphone and camera setup, like it would never happen. But if I ask for $60 to play a video game, you guys are on top of it. If I ask $80 for one at a time, I mean, yes, but still, no. The plan is that once my December Christmas bonus from my day job comes in, some of that money will be going towards investing in that sort of thing. Black Friday and Cyber Monday are in fact coming. I'm hoping that my Christmas check comes in before that for that specific reason. Whoops, did not mean to move the camera. So, let's go ahead and let's get started looking through the Brady Games Paper Mario Official Strategy Guide, with a free poster inside. Now, right off the bat, I will inform you the free poster did not survive. I have checked the back of the book. There's a strip of paper where the poster once was, but it's not there no more. Alas. Hi, Strider. Welcome to the stream. We're just cracking open the book, and I'm showing you what's inside. Let me show you the back here. So it says, free the star spirit. 7 star spirits have been taken captive by the evil King Bowser, and it's up to you to free them. This guide will lead you to victory in Mario's heroic quest to answer the plea from the stars. Essentials revealed: star pieces, badges, letters, items, strategies and secrets. They use Mario's head as a bullet point. That's fun. And then it's like, we'll show you how to get through that desert maze. And then it's like, you'll always know exactly where you are on the map. I'm going to be honest with you. There's nothing about this that makes it easy to actually go through. Oh, hold on a minute. On the very first page, it says there's no evidence of this online. Does it qualify as showing lost media? I would say so. I mean, it's lost media in the sense that the internals have never been documented. But I'm planning on documenting it. I'm planning on not properly scanning it, but documenting the internals and then like offering it as a shit PDF just so a record of this exists. I'm literally planning on uploading it to like archive.org just so that there is some evidence of this book existing, because otherwise, unfortunately, it's not going to be a perfect guide. Someone used whiteout to give Bowser a mustache. Does that show up on the camera? That's so cute. One of the things I absolutely adore when finding old books like this, like finding a book like this in pristine condition is obviously the dream, but also finding a book where someone has left a mark on it has become part of the history of the book. I adore that. There is a Japanese Paper Mario guide that is designed like a children's book, including pages for you to color. I've seen one for sale on Japanese eBay, and the previous owner, as a child, wrote their name in the book. They did all of the connected dots. They colored in it. They added like little hand-scribbled notes on various monsters. I can't read Japanese, so I'm assuming it's just like information about how to fight them better. And I'm like, yeah, I want that copy. That's so... Hi, Aya. Welcome to the stream. I need to move chat so that I'm like looking at chat so it appears like, hi, Aya, I see you over there, but I'm over here going like, no, it's fine. All right. So, interesting enough. So, on the first couple of pages, they spent a paragraph of writing what appears to be a poem to the author, the editor's tribute to the author. He's a Canadian icon. He sleeps with his clothes on. He likes to work with his hands. He's an apolitical man. Are these song lyrics? And he don't like change. And he don't like change. You may think he's deranged, but he'd rather be home. Home. Home on the Strange by Geddy Lee. So right off the bat, yeah, that sounds like song lyrics. Right off the bat. So, okay. So let me show you this page right here. So the organization of the information. Apolitical, he sounds like a narc. Lol. So the book is separated into two sections. The game basics, which lasts for about 28 pages, and then the walkthrough, which goes from page 32 to 143, the table of contents, right? So there's this smaller bit, and then the rest of the game is this. The problem in having the information organized like this is that the context by Geddy Lee, yeah, that's Rush, but also Neil Peart wrote all the Rush lyrics, LMAO. They didn't even get that right. The problem with organizing the information like this is that it's completely derived of any context. It's just raw data being thrown at your face. And then on page 32, the actual walkthrough starts and you understand what's happening. The other game does it the opposite way around, where it gives you the walkthrough with information to what page to flip to for the raw data. And that's so much better organized. Also, this is a recurring issue. Unlike the Prima Guide, I guess that these guys did not have access to any official Nintendo assets outside of what was available in the press releases, like the press pamphlets they give out to like organizations and magazines to promote the games. Because all of the character portraits are very bad. I hesitate to call them screenshots. It looks like they actually took a camera and took a picture of their TV screens in order to get these images. These are the images that show up when you first get the character in your party. And even though they're meant to be crayon-like, the blurring on these is even worse than in the actual game itself. A proto screenshot, I mean, yeah, basically. Well, it was the year 2000, so screenshots existed. And this is a problem throughout the entire book, actually. One page. Okay, so these first two pages are the party members. Okay, then immediately it goes into one page for what it calls key characters. These are not key characters. These are just a random assortment of recurring NPCs. So you have Merlovely, Merlot, Merlon, and Merlee, who are all the various wizard people that you meet. Okay. They are not all key characters. Only one of them is a key character. The rest are entirely optional. Taste T is on there. That's fine. She isn't necessarily interesting to the plot, but she's useful for progression. Koopa Koot, Rip Cheeto, and Chet Rippo are on here. Koopa Koot is a fetch quest side mission that you only need to complete to receive a single good healing item at the end of it. Like, it's not even worth your time, but you do it for 100% completion. Rip Cheeto is a guy you can possibly never find. He's completely optional. Chet Rippo is a swindler who scams you once and never appears again. So like these 7 or these 8 characters that this book says these are key characters have next to nothing to do with the actual game. So obviously Taste Tea is required for chapter 4. Okay, so fine. Also, I just love Taste Tea, so. Also, you will notice, let's see if I can't get a proper zoom in on this. I'm going to try and... So you will notice that these screenshots are just screenshots of the game. You can see Merlo there. He's talking to Mario and Goombario. But then you get to Merlon. He's... Actually, hold on. Is that even Merlon? Yeah, that is Merlon from a very strange angle. But no, Merlon is that little yellow speck in the upper right corner. Right? Like, they didn't even send her the screenshot to show the character off they're trying to get. Same thing with Merlee. They have their feet. Her entire head is fucking cut off. All right? This is a recurring issue throughout the entire book where the crops are just wrong. The crops are just absolutely wrong. If they exist at all, this is part of the bestiary, and I'm noticing now that this person went through with a lot of whiteout and colored in a whole lot of stuff. Pardon me. So we have this bestiary. We have all these images of these characters, weird close-ups on the bosses, like Bowser's just the head. They could have zoomed out. Bill Blaster doesn't even have a photo. Bill Blaster from the Rugged Mountain section doesn't even have a photo. It just doesn't. It's just, they just didn't put one in, I guess. They didn't have any time. Not all of these crops are terrible. Most of them are somewhat serviceable. The Ninja Koopas, there's fucking 4 of them in the game. Not a single photo of these. They include the other bosses, but not the Ninja Koopas. This continues throughout the book, just randomly. Paratroopas, Pokemummies. Let's see, the White Club is in here. Actually, hold on a minute. The bestiary is, there's what, 5 a page. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so maybe, I feel like there's more enemies than this in the game. I could be wrong, but I feel like there's more enemies in this. Did they include the dojo? Oh, that's a good point. I don't see any of the dojo fighters. They included Tubba and his heart. They don't have the Ice King. The Ice King isn't in here. So they're missing some bosses. They're probably missing some foot soldiers. They don't have proper crops. They're missing dojos. Dojo characters. Ooh woo, mi amigo. Hello, Ren. Welcome to the stream. So, right off the bat, information is missing. To be expected. Are bosses not a different section? No, Tubba and Bowser, as well as one of the bloopers, is included in that bestiary. Let me see if they do... Key characters, bestiary, star pieces, badges, letter quests, items, tasty recipes. Oh, the dojo has its own section near the end, which is weird in its own way, but okay. All right. Then it does very basic lists of all the badges and their effects. I don't know how accurate these are. Also, what's really interesting is that they in the star pieces. The star pieces section of this part of the book is one paragraph at the top of this page where it just says, when you see a star piece appear on a map, that's where a star piece is. So go get them, I guess. Doesn't really say much more than that. Why did that have to be a section? It didn't have to be a section. Let's see. Yeah, no, very helpful. Very helpful. It does include what appears to be all the information about the letter quests. The letter quests, once you have Parakarry in your party, you can find lost letters around the world, and if you deliver them to the right recipient, they'll give you either an item or a new letter to deliver. So it's a collection of, whoever has them all. Has them all? The race is on! Yeah, exactly. But looking through this information, so if you obtain a letter from Coover, you deliver it to Fishmael in the Toad Town port. The problem is, for a guide that's trying to give you the secrets of this game, the characters who give you those letters tell you who to deliver it to and where they are. The only things you wouldn't know about are the letters you find randomly in the wild. And even then, those are usually those are characters you already have met. So chances are you're not going to find a letter that says deliver to this toad with no hints as to where that toad may be in the game world. It's pretty straightforward. It's a matter of getting the letters and getting there and running all over the map, delivering them to get your items. So this feels a little, items, again, just a table. Just a very, very basic green table, green and white table. Has a very basic amount of information. Includes some, but not all, of the special items, like the plot-based items you can't use in battle. So it includes, it shows all the items from Flower Fields, it looks like. But it doesn't show the plot-based items from Dry Desert. The statue you had to give to Colorado is not on this. I'm not seeing any of the Peach specific items. Peach gets an umbrella that allows her to transform. That's not included on here. So it's most of the information, but not all the information. No, it does not include the stolen items. I'm looking on this. It's mushroom, dried shroom, super shroom. Oh, hold on a minute. Is the ultra shroom on here? The vault shroom's here. I do not see the ultra shroom. I do not see the highest form of mushroom on the items list. Interesting. So what we're getting out of this, what I hope we're all getting out of this, is that this guide is missing a lot of information, and the information it does have is questionable in its usefulness or its veracity. What's interesting to me is that it includes all of these recipes from Tasty, and they're kind of designed to look like recipe cards, but not really. Some of these, I know for a fact, have... Yeah, interesting enough, the Honey Ultra recipe is here. It says, to make a Honey Ultra, you need a honey syrup and an Ultra Shroom. But an Ultra Shroom isn't listed in the list of items available in this game. So that's not good. I also know for a fact a number of recipes have multiple recipes. You can get the same recipe using more than one combination of items, right? And the Life Shroom, the Sleepy Sheep... No, actually... Okay, so the Life Shroom and Sleepy Sheep show alternates. Can you cook to make an Ultra Shroom? I don't believe so. I don't believe that's an option. Ultra Shrooms can only be found as an item in the world. I do believe if you try to cook an Ultra Shroom on its own, it'll make fried shrooms, which is significantly less good at healing. It's only 6 HP and 2 FP. And I only know that because I just played the game. I don't have encyclopedic knowledge of the numbers. So there are bad ingredients. Actually, let me look here. Is fried egg is here? Is fried shroom? No. No. Fried shroom is one of the first recipes you can make, because you can make it with a regular ass red mushroom. Koopa tea is here. That makes sense. No, fried shrooms aren't even on this list, and it's one of the first things you can make. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, here's something funny. Koopa tea, my favorite. No, T-E-A. You brew it with a Koopa leaf. Here's the dojo. It's just this half of a page. It only gives you information on 2 of the forms of the master. It doesn't say anything about... Gotta, I know I was joking. Shut up. I thoroughly believe that somewhere in your brain are the numbers. Can I lower this a bit so it's not blasting in my face? Okay, it's better. It's better. It shows the master, and then the master second stage. And then it lists beneath it, if you defeat each underling, you get your first degree card. If you defeat the first master, the third... That's not even correct. You fight them in a specific order. You fight the Buzzy Beetle, you fight the Ghost, and you get the first degree and second degree card respectively. You get the third degree card for fighting the Master. You get the fourth degree card by fighting the Master in his super form. And then if you fight him in his final form, you get the diploma. So this information is just straight up wrong. What's really interesting for me is that the Master, it lists the heart points, the attack power, and the defense power. Do you want to know who else can give you that information? Goombario, whose entire gimmick is that he tells you the health, attack power, and defense of enemies you're fighting if you have them in your party while you fight them. So all of this information leads me to believe that this person played the game on their own free time, didn't play it all that thoroughly, but this way you don't have to wait a turn to get the info, I guess. But also, if you tattle with Goombario, that enemy's health bar is forever listed above their head whenever you next meet them. So actually using Goombario on every enemy in the game is beneficial because it means you only gotta do it once per enemy type. Yeah, but Peekaboo badge. Yeah, the Peekaboo badge. I use the Peekaboo badge quite frequently, actually. I actually prefer using Goombario. I like the added... I've played the game so fucking much that I like the added challenge of having to, like, spend my first partner turn on a tattle. And also, if you can level up Goombario, like, you can level up Goombario pretty quickly so that his damage output with Head Bonk is on par with Mario's. So you can just use Goombario... Is this like the Ralts does not evolve meme all over again? No, don't worry about it. I don't think it's a meme. Look, man, I got a den light here. It's not like the world's #1 favorite Mario fan is ever gonna review it live on the internet in 23 years. Okay, well, to give this book some credit, it does include every single Chuck Quizmo question. Like, all of this is just the Chuck Quizmo questions. All 64 of them, no less. And I don't have time to look through all of them, but I'm going to trust that they are correct, because in order to have seen all 64 questions, you would have had to know what the correct answers were to begin with, right? Like, that's the most important thing here, honestly. Some of those questions are kind of toughies. Let's see here. Actually, these are all really shit easy. Really shit easy questions. Maybe because I'm 30 years old that these questions all seem easy. If I were a child, I probably would have a hard time remembering all this. That's the most important thing here. That's worth $80. I agree. This intern had to compile a book for kids who can barely read. Gotta, meanwhile, lies in wait. It's true. This book is literally 22 years old, though. So, like, okay. So now that we're on page 30, we have finally reached the actual walkthrough. And one thing I have been skipping over is the high-res art that has been included in here. I mean, I'm already a fan of the game, but I absolutely adore the art style they use for Mario Story. And while the art in the Prima Guide, when they use it, is good, it also, like, some of these are in higher res than I have personally ever seen them. Good lord, this book is my... Don't say that. Don't tell me Super Mario 64 came out the year you were born. Fuck off. I was born before Mario World came out. I was born after, right, the same year, like 4 months after Super Mario World released in North America. Don't tell me that your birth Mario game is Paper Mario 64. I can't fucking take it. Okay, so here is what this book considers to be a worthwhile map, okay? It takes the world map from the start screen, and it darkens every area you don't go to during the chapter it's talking about. Again, this information is available in the game itself for absolutely free. It's not great. The rest of the book, from what it appears to be, is a series of proto screenshots. Just so many of these proto screenshots detailing step by step where you go and what you do. And I honestly don't have anything else to say about this. Unlike the bestiary, which randomly chose what information it gave you, what it considered. All right, so there is information about the individual fights there is information about the individual fights you come across, which includes the bosses. So we have the Goomba Bros fight. We have the Goomba King here. I feel like this information should have been in a bestiary. You know what? Let me go get the other book and just show you for comparison's sake the difference between these two bestiaries. Okay? Hold on. It's right over here. Here we are. All right, so this is the official Nintendo Power Guide. I love those Pokemon Ultimate guides the Anime Wiki printed into a book. Genius. You're basically printing money at that point. Exactly. Okay, so this is the official Paper Mario Guide by Nintendo Power. Now you're playing with power. Super Power, the official Nintendo Player's Guide, okay? Let me scroll back. So first of all, let me show you what information they give about the team members, okay? Not only does it show you the team members in the order they're added to your group, they also list all of their power-ups. You can level up the characters as you find stuff in the overworld to give them new abilities, to give them new powers. It includes that information. It includes all of it. Their idea of a map is a full-on 3D look at each individual area with labels to where everything is, okay? It's like night and fucking day. Sometimes they use stuff like use the Master Ball on difficult Pokemon, like a Fearow or Tentacruel. I love that so much. That's so funny. Let me show you. Okay, so here's the bestiary, right? And to be fair, most of the information is the same you find in the Brady Games book. It just has the basic stats that you can still get from Goombario, but it also has a little blurb about how it attacks and why. So like with Junior Troopa, it listens that, you know, he's borrowed a hat from a spiked Goomba, pointing out that, hey, he's got a spiked head this time, calm the fuck down. Lava Bubble also has the ability to attack your party members, knocking them silly for a turn or two. That's good information. That's stuff that someone would who like spent money on a guide would want to know. I also like how, despite these sprites obviously being taken from internal screenshots, as opposed to being the raw sprites themselves, they're edited in a way that they're still legible, and it looks like they were, how do I word this without coming across absolutely weird? There's no odd scaling of the pixels that make it obvious they're made out of pixels unless you look at it for just a bit too long. You know what I mean? Like the individual colors do not, they blur together in a way that the N64 was intended to blur together, not in a way where it's like, oh, someone took a disposable camera and took a picture of their computer screen. It's a little different. But yeah, the rest of this book is a chapter by chapter list of all the stuff you have to do, and the colors for each chapter are slightly different. They do use this Mario Hammer graphic for every single page. Actually, yeah, they flip it for the other side too. It's every single page. Every single one. Chapter 1 is brown. Chapter 2, they use this nice green pattern. It's fine. It does the job. I don't really have much else to say about it, honestly. It just continues on like this, step by step by step by step by step by step by step, until the very end, where it takes you through Bowser's Castle, and then the final page is the fight with Bowser, and the very last thing printed on this book, the end, says, "We won't give away the ending, but here's a shot of the fireworks." And then the book ends. That's it. Granted, there was a poster at one point, so maybe having the poster there was a bit, a bit better. But that's the whole book. It's essentially. But Gata, are you happy with your? Oh no, Aya! I love this. I am so happy. This is the. Did I get my Sarah? Yes. I'm gonna trot this out at parties. I am unironically gonna. I want to find a way to frame it and display it somewhere, along with In Power. I now own a copy of both of the North American Paper Mario guides that were printed around the time of the game. I have them both now, including one that is incredibly rare because no one preserved them. I have, as far as I'm aware, this is the only surviving copy. I don't know anyone else who has one. I've never found anyone who still has one of these. This is better than my Duke Nukem Internet Guidebook from 1997. I would love to see that. I love to see that. On a personal note, having this brings me so much joy. You guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please do not take ripping it apart for being ungrateful or unhappy. I didn't expect this thing to have like the lost secrets of Mario lore. I didn't expect this thing to blow my mind with something I had never heard before. Like, no, this was a book that is rare because it's shit, but I have one. And now I can document it and I can share that with the internet. And I am so very, very happy. I am so happy. Thank you guys so much. I have, not to immediately be like, I got this book and now I want another one. I have been saving various eBay set listings for some Japanese Paper Mario guides, because they printed more guides in Japan than they did in America. Japan has this thing where they'll print guides for the release of the game, and then they'll print another guide to include the information they didn't have before the game came out. Less so nowadays because we have access to like press copies and YouTube and Wikipedia and all that jazz, mind you. But there were a number. They got a big guide culture, yes. For Paper Mario specifically, ignoring the one that's like a children's coloring book, because I've never seen that on eBay. There have been a couple of official books. There's a sticker book that has all of the like Toad Town characters as stickers, which I'm excited to get a hold of those. The paper product culture in Japan was wild. So many printed things, 10 out of 10. Okay, yeah. For a collector like me, I'm like, ooh, I want one of these. I want one of those. I want one of that. And I also been looking at the guides for the other Paper Mario games, because there's Thousand Year Door, there's Sticker Star, there's Super Paper Mario for the Wii, which we're never going to finish, sorry. 90s Japan paper products is only rivaled by 90s TSR. I'm not even going to get into comparing those. That. I also want to start collecting. This is for me personally, by the way. This isn't me like, give me more money and I'll buy these books too, but you know. I also want to start collecting guides for the Mario and Luigi series, and also there is the Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars for the SNES, which had a couple of guides printed for it in North America and Japan as well. Weren't you gonna move chat? No, chat can say, chat, you can say where you are. It's fine. Honestly, what I could probably do is just move my OBS from one. Here. Is this better? From one screen to another. Let me just move the chat. There we go. Does this? Well, now my glasses are reflecting off the light. Whatever. Does this make it appear more like I'm paying attention to you guys? Is this better for you? All right. Let me just scroll this up a little bit. Okay. All right. But yeah, no, I don't know, to be honest. All right. Well, we'll figure it out together. As a family, we'll figure it out together. So that's the book. When I get more cool stuff, we'll do more IRL streams like this. We can show them off to you, because like, I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoy. Well, now you're not looking at where chat is for me, Squint. Fuck off. I love showing this stuff off, and apparently you guys enjoy seeing it. So, yeah, if ranting about the cool new thing I got counts as content, I'll make use of that. Why the fuck not? All right. Now we move on to, that was all of 45 minutes. We did that in 45 minutes. Now we move on to the next bit where I rant about game design and how to be a good GM. I have a number of questions that I have compiled from Twitter. And of course, I will answer questions as they appear in chat. Let me just pull those up. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. And I will be listing who asked what question as we go through. So to give context, I have been a dungeon master since 2017, playing various games that weren't D&D, and then I played D&D, and I fell out of love with it very quickly. But I have been designing tabletop experiences since I was 8 years old and didn't even know what they were. I was making pseudo rules to my family's make-believe since I was a wee bab. With rule books and binders and stats long before I even knew what a role-playing game was. So when I actually discovered role-playing games, I was like, oh, I know how to do this, and I just went with it. One of my favorites was my family and I were really big into Digimon when we were younger. So I wrote rules for LARPing as a Digimon. There was like Digivolution rules as to what you could and couldn't Digivolve into. There was like, you were elementals to your attacks. And the game we actually ended up LARPing as children, was pretty much base survival, where we had a whole bunch of, my mother bought a lot of Capri Suns. We loved Capri Sun in our house, and we had all those boxes left over. So she would take the empty Capri Sun boxes, tape them back up, cover them in contact paper, and give them to us as makeshift blocks. And we had a ridiculous amount of those. So it was a base building game with random encounter elements, with RPG elements, while we were stomping around, roaring our Digimon attacks out and pretending to Digivolve, just me and my siblings. In hindsight, it was fucking adorable. But I've been doing this ever since I was real little. So as anyone, as a white man on the internet who has opinions about something, I've decided that I'm going to use this microphone to tell you those opinions. So anything that I say is based entirely off my own experience. I may sound authoritative and this is how it is math when I say it, but that's just because I sound authoritative when I speak. When I think I know something, I think I know it, and I act like it until I am corrected. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If anything I say is useful to you, take it and hold it close to your heart. If anything I say sounds like absolute bullshit, then feel free to, just ignore me. You don't have to believe me. It's fine. I can take it. My heart can take it. All right. Onslaught6 says, I built my own D&D in 2000 without a single fantasy TTRPG book as reference. I wish they'll have those documents. Isn't that always the shame? When you're young and you make something, it's lost of time. Don't be pulling that Terrence Howard, I invented my own math shit. I do not know who Terrence Howard is. I feel like this might discredit me for not knowing, but there's a lot of names floating around, so. Me, smiley face. What is that in relation to, Raggles? Let's start. Raggles actually asked the most questions. So what I think I'll do is I'll ask a Raggle question, then ask someone else's question. Oh, you're Terrence Howard. Okay. Hi, Terrence Howard. Nice to meet you. My name is Gata. But no. The first question that Raglan asked is, how do you structure your reward systems? Oh, he's an actor and he went nuts. Look it up sometime. I will. But yes, Raglan asks, how do you structure your reward systems? It's difficult for me to say that I structure them. Saying that it feels like the question you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do you create incentives to get your players to do something? How do you organize it so that your players are rewarded for what they do? And the way that I view game design or any game experience is, step one is to determine what fantasy you're trying to fulfill with your game experience, whether it be a looter shooter or a narrative drama guide, or a dungeon looting kill the monsters game, right? Once you determine what that core fantasy is, you then know what actions that your players will have to do to fulfill that fantasy. If you want to have a pure dungeon crawling, high fantasy, get the gold, save the girl kind of D&D adventure, you don't want to have a character showing up with guns. I mean, maybe you do if that's part of the fantasy, but if you're going for a specific genre or for a specific experience, you want to encourage them to do the heroic thing, to save the girl, to fight the goblins, right? You want to make sure that the actions that they are encouraged to take are the actions that will help them fulfill that fantasy. So then, once you know the core fantasy, and once you know what actions your players need to fulfill that fantasy, you then need to figure out how are you going to entice them to do those actions. It's less you get a cookie and more you get a cookie for behaving, if that makes sense. Like, we all know that players love cookies. And the issue, the goal is not to take cookies away when they do something bad. It's to make sure they only receive cookies when they do something good. This is sounding like kindergartners. And that's basically what D&D is, what Ttrpg is. It's psychology and being a kindergarten teacher. I'm not going to lie. When I structure my games, that is the very specific 1, 2, 3 that I follow. And that ends up being cyclical, right? Because once I determine the fantasy, I determine the actions needed, I determine the rewards for it, then that loops back around, and how does the reward loop back around to that core fantasy? Does the reward encourage them to do it again? Or does it or is it an end goal where they reach that reward and then they stop? So it turns into this cycle of me constantly go back to the fantasy, add an action, add a reward for the action. How does that affect the fantasy? And go on and on and on until eventually I get tired of it and I shit out a PDF onto itch.io and say, there, the game's done. And then it's not done, but whatever. Bandit asks, what is your favorite homebrew thing that you've ever seen? I can answer this one right off the bat. So, ironically, it is 5th edition homebrew. I actually spend a lot of time scrolling through various homebrew Reddits, subreddits. It's never done. It's just out. Yeah, no, basically, it's never done. It's just out, and then you don't touch it again. You do touch it again. You give it a new name and say, look at this new game that I'm releasing. I definitely haven't done that. There are no finished games, only shipped games. There are no finished games, only shipped games, and future supplements for Kickstarters. Bandit asks, favorite homebrew thing you've ever seen was a Stranger, not Stranger Worlds. Is it a Strange Worlds? I forget what the name of the imprint is. Dragon Ball Z. Someone out there has a subreddit dedicated to making very detailed Dragon Ball Z homebrew for 5th edition. And the knee-jerk reaction I have is that 5th edition is not a good game to base a Dragon Ball Z campaign on. And despite having one of my favorite videos of all time is about adapting Dragon Ball Z into a D&D campaign, I still hold that 5e is not a game to have a Dragon Ball Z campaign in. But the homebrew in particular has multiple races, multiple classes, and despite using 5e as the bones of it, a lot of the flavor that is added to it, a lot of the GM advice is on how to make the game feel like DBZ from the player's end without drastically taking a hammer to the mechanics. It's a lot of advice about how to make the D&D stuff that you do feel like Dragon Ball. And that's why that's one of the things that I've actually taken to heart and internalized. There's an entire table for what they call seismic damage, which is about how you describe the world around the Dragon Ball fighters folding and crumbling as they continue their onslaught. The actual guidance, I believe, is that when your character crits, roll on this table quietly to determine how you describe the world reacting to that. Not even how the person they punch reacts, it's how the world reacts. And that really stuck with me as I was reading it. I was like, oh, that's right. I'm not limited in describing the repercussions of their actions to the thing they intended to interact with. I can describe a super... The crazy thing is, Onslaught 6 says, and I love this statement immediately, pre-Z Dragon Ball is absolutely D&D style stuff, the shonen travel anime. I agree with that. Complete with the racism. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. But no, yeah, early Toriyama was really racist against Chinese people. Holy shit. If you've ever wondered why one of the main characters of Dragon Ball is a talking pig, no, it's not for good reasons. It's really not for good reasons, guys. The man eventually came around, realized that what he had created was harmful, and took steps to mitigate it. He's better now in a Dr. Seuss kind of a way. But a lot of early Dragon Ball, once you realize that the entire thing was basically a racist parody of Journey to the West at the start, it takes on a very different light. It's kind of hard to read. It's really hard to read. It got better, but still. And now the entire franchise hinges upon that. So that's fun. That's great. Yay. One of the hardest things, this is going to be a side rant, one of the hardest things, and it's not even that hard, right? It's like comparatively the hardest thing as a white man who grew up in a racist society, was only made aware of those problems later in his life. I say later in his life, I'm 30, is that once you start seeing the racism, you do not stop. And it's retroactive. All the stuff that you have fond memories of, you think about it and go, oh, wow, that was really racist. So it's just a consistent, never-ending, I don't want to say a grieving period, because that centers me. It ignores that those things were hurtful the entire time. But it's just really a never-ending learning experience that everything you loved and cherished was bad, actually. And that's really hard to swallow for a lot of stuff. That's really hard to swallow. And it makes some sort of sense why a lot of people just choose to stay racist. It's so much easier. It's hard to swallow for other people. Yeah, it is. Raglan asks, how often do you pivot? And there was clarification I asked for on Twitter as to what he meant by pivot. And he specifically meant in terms of like character goals. Like, how often do I change things behind the screen to react to the choices the players made? And this is going to be a questionable thing to say as a response, because the answer is that game design, and this is, I think this is a Matt Colville quote. I'm misquoting him, but I believe Matt Colville said this, that game design does not stop when the session begins. Game design continues at the table. It continues moment to moment as your players roll the dice and take their turns and make decisions. You are constantly tweaking the adventure. Well, not necessarily. It depends on your style of GMing. But that is a very Matt Colville thing to say. I love Matt Colville. 90% of what I can tell you in any of my streams is just knowledge I gained from watching a Matt Colville video regurgitated out to you through my mouth. So just assume anything smart I had to say is because of that man. I love his work. I believe the full quote is, the encounter design doesn't stop because we rolled initiative. Thank you, Onslaught. Yes, that sounds closer to it. I'm misremembering most of the things that I keep in my head. But a lot of DMs will treat the game world as static, right? That the game world they designed is somehow more real if they do not ever compromise the integrity behind the screen. My problem with that mentality is that if you treat the game world as being more real than your players, you run into an issue where something bad happens that you could have averted and your players have a bad experience, and the fault is never put on the GM, it's blamed on the world. The world cannot and should not be a scapegoat for bad encounter design. Now, if players make a bad decision in a game where they know that the tactical choices matter, then that's part of the game experience. I'm talking about scenarios where just because you decided when you were designing the game world that this one dumb action has an uncorrelated extraneous response, like say, if you pull a lever and your character just dies, rocks fall, everyone dies. That's literally what it's named for. If a rocks falls, everyone dies happens because you designed the game world that way, and the characters interacted with the world in a way that would have been completely logical. They would have had no way of knowing that was even on the table. That's bad game design. It's not the world fucking over the players. That's the GM's prerogative. So for me, especially in these style of games that I run, I have an outline of events, I have descriptions of locations, and I have a basic set key moments that I want to happen in order for the adventure to continue, but everything else is mostly improv on the spot. Character, oh, hello? I have the camera on, darling. Oh. Is that gonna be a problem? No. Okay. My beautiful wife is knocking on my enclosure. Hello. Yes, I can make you aloe juice. Do you want to entertain them, or are you? Sure. Okay. Just the camera's here, and you can read chat here. I'll be right back. Raglan says, "Beautiful wife, Pog."
Hello, Raglan. I really liked your Halloween costume.
It was very cute.
It was very cute.
With the mango stuff I've been giving you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. It's a high pain day. Hello, everybody. I see Raggles. I see Jen. I see Tegan. Wow, my hair's a mess. I've been sleeping all day. Hello. How are you guys? Hello, Susie. Hello, Six. I'm the streamer now. Oh, I'm not very entertaining. Thank you. I don't know what I did. I think I just slept wrong. This is Bedhead.
Juice. Hi, Bedhead. I'm Dad.
You are? You got something to tell me? Juice.
How you feeling?
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went to get up and I walked in a circle for a minute.
Oh no, honey. I'm sorry, baby.
We come here to dunk on Gata.
That's true. That is true. I'm very dunkable.
You're so cute.
Thank you.
Wow.
How high are you right now?
Pretty high.
Do you need help getting back to bed? Well, I'll carry the juice, and you walk back to the bed. Give me a moment to get my beautiful wife back under the covers, and I'll be right back. Like an Oreo, yes. Yes. I'm dunkable like an Oreo.
Oh, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm. You can drink all the juice right here?
I'm gonna drink all the juice.
Okay.
Hi. Oh.
High like an Oreo? Oh. Like a basketball. Yes.
I took some muscle relaxers and hopes. Yes, very good. Hello. How are you?
My beautiful wife is high on muscle relaxers right now, so she's not she's with us, but she's not with us, you know?
My back hurts.
Mm-hmm. Good for her. She's been sleeping almost the entire day away on various pain relievers and muscle relaxers, because those things knock her the fuck out.
They make me so sleepy.
All right. You need help getting back to the bed?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you go fix the bed? I have destroyed it.
All right. I'll fix the bed while you keep talking.
Okay. I love you, Thirsty.
I love you.
This your silly little book?
The green one, yeah.
Silly little book.
Silly little book.
Hello, everybody. Destroyer of beds and drinker of juice. Yes, I love juice. I don't drink soda, so I mostly drink juice. And then I fight demons in my sleep, so I destroy the bed, like I rip all the sheets off. And punch Gata in the face. He gets hit a couple times during the night, unfortunately. No, he doesn't deserve it. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. And it doesn't help that, like, all I want to do is cuddle, so I get real close to him. Fighter of demons in Gata. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think. I didn't go to work today because of my pain, and I'm very upset because we had an emergency surgery, and I'm getting all the pictures, and I'm so upset that I wasn't there because I've never seen a PIO before, which is an infection of the uterus. It weighed 11 pounds, and I wasn't there for it. Yeah, it's pretty insane. Spay and neuter, y'all. Spay and neuter. And I've never seen one like in real life before, so.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, it is awful for the animal because, ouch. But I wanted to be there. I really like surgery. It's like one of my favorite things to do at work. I'm really into anesthesia. What?
Nothing, honey.
So I wish I would have been there.
Mm-hmm. She likes being there for the weird and wild ones so she can experience them and go, ew, gross, that's so cool.
Yes. Okay, I go to bed now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let me get her in bed and we'll get back to the conversation, okay, guys? Do you need to push the chair back at all?
I'm more scared that I'm going to hit your microphone.
Here, let me move this back.
Good night, everybody.
You good? Alright, I'll be right back, guys.
You still love me?
Of course I do, darling. Of course I do.
Has that camper always been there?
No. No, I think that's newish.
Okay. Yeah, I love you.
Yeah, you know that I love you.
Came out there for a reason. What was it?
I love you. What? I still love you. Worry about it. Oh, yes. Alright, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming, everybody. Chair stream. Chair stream. Chair stream. You love these little peeks beyond the enclosure. I need to do another house tour. Strahd von Cherevich. Oh no. Oh no. I need to do another house tour one of these days. It's still kind of a wreck, so I don't even know if it's even like worth it, but you know, the enclosure is to attempt to stop some echoing, because without it, like, I have the whole house behind me, so, you know. What were we talking about? I don't remember. I don't remember. Yes, welcome back. Did you all behave while I was gone? I was low-key hoping that a Brisky boy, because he's right there in his cat bed, curled up, blinking at me, that a Brisky boy would have popped over to say hello, but alas. You're always having... James design. That's right. We were talking about James design. We were talking about how all your advice is actually from Matt Colville, but you misremember it and repackage it. Well, you know. I have a lot of free time in my day job on Fridays, so I normally, like, I've actually rewatched all 100 and something of his running the game videos at least 3 times each. And some I go back and I rewatch over and over and over and over again. Not obsessively, but in a way that he's like a consistent on my recently watched. Hi, Mithroon. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. Let's see here. Boomer the PNG tuber asks, what are the limits to rule of cool? Now, here's where we get into some D&D topics, guys. Now I'm going to yell about D&D for 20 minutes. Are you ready? I do not think that a well-designed game needs the rule of cool to function. I honestly feel like if the base mechanics don't natively allow for rule of cool to happen, you're playing the wrong game. 5e requires that you break it to make it do what you want. A lot of rule of cool moments are scenarios where there either isn't a rule for it, or there is a rule and the rule says no, but the player really wants to do it. And in your own individual games, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with playing D&D where you don't even have a character sheet. You just say, I'm an elf, and I roll a d20, and you tell me if that succeeds or not. Like, you can do that till the cows come home. I'm not going to stop you. But in terms of 5e as a game, as a designed product, the fact that so many people need to codify a rule of cool in order to get the fantasy they want from it, that to me reeks of bad design and bad choice of game, quite frankly. If I were to play 5e right now, I would play it within the rules. If the DM wants to homebrew something, that's their prerogative, but I would never say, hey DM, this is against the rules, can I do it anyway? That's no. As a GM, the enjoyment of your players is the most important thing. Before any sort of moralizing about rules as written or rules as intended, before any sort of brand loyalty to you gotta play the game my way or no other way, you need to make sure your players are having a good time. However, if you are consistently having to call upon the rule of cool in order to succeed at that, you're playing the wrong game. And there is a better system, a better set of hacks, a better anything for your table that you need to find. So the limits to rule of cool, in my opinion, more than once, something has to change. Something should change. Conversely, actually, going back to pivoting, right? If a player comes up with something that is technically y'all trying to screw in a screw with a hammer, thank you. Yes. I don't think I know what the rule of cool is when you explain it like that. You don't? Okay. So my definition of the rule of cool is that if a player wants to do something for the sake of it being cool, but it doesn't fit the system or rule set you're using, and the DM says, do it anyway, right? Now, mind you, this includes not rolling, right? This includes not rolling. If you are playing a game where, like D&D, you have a strength stat, you have an intelligence stat, you have a wisdom stat, you have like a numbers for your various attributes. And your player says, can I be like Superman and lift the car over my head and stand there proudly? And the DM goes, damn, that would be such a cool moment. That would be so cool. Yeah, you go ahead and do that. Create Water says it needs a container. Well, lungs are a kind of container. Right. No. That is cool as shit. And a rule of cool GM would say, you know what? Yeah, they are a kind of container. Go ahead and do it. You do it. It's fine. At that point, what the player is asking for is for a more malleable magic system than D&D allows you to provide. In a game, how do I word this? In a game where there are no rules, right, for the thing you're trying to do, and the DM's answer is, that's cool, so yes. That, I feel, is okay. It's all right. There's no rule saying no, so you haven't broken the game. You've definitely found an unintended edge case. But it's not wrong to desire that kind of system either, but it ain't worth playing. Yes, thank you, Onslaught. The issue isn't always that D&D is bad, you should never play it, right? Like, you read my tweets and you probably have that opinion. No. D&D is the square peg being put into the round hole by everyone who has a square peg ever. And it fucking infuriates me. Because it's also ruining the round peg industry. Who needs a round peg? We have this square peg. It goes in all the holes. Anyway, that's a little niche TikTok reference. So, but like, if you have players who are consistently trying to break or maneuver around the actual system you're playing, something has to give in this player's playstyle or in the system you're using. It's a quiet call for help, in my opinion. A lot of D&D advice on the internet, even from some big like D&D YouTubers, boils down to, if your players want to do something, just rule of cool it to make them happy. And I think that's bad advice. There is, I really probably shouldn't name people by names, but I want you guys to be able to like look the videos up if you're curious. This isn't me saying they're a bad person or a bad YouTuber or whatever, but they had an opinion I disagreed with, and that's the level we're working on here. There is Dungeon Craft with Professor Dungeon Master, who does a lot of, he's been a dungeon master since the original version of D&D. He's an older gentleman, and he wrote for Dragon Magazine back in the day. He wrote articles for Dragon Magazine back in the day, so he's like has history with D&D. And one of the videos that he made was about cinematic combats. Disagreeable opinions, the greatest sin. Yeah, that's why I use Twitter. Like my opinions on Matt Colville, is I respect the experience. I don't always agree with the conclusions they come to. I cannot deny that he has a lot of lived experience, and that's what he draws from, but not all of his conclusions come from the same place I would want them to come from for me personally. It's just a matter of opinions. The stuff that he has been through is storied, and he's been doing it for years, but he's also not partaken in a lot of content that I find to be valuable, so our opinions naturally differ. But he had a video on cinematic combats, which talked a lot about how movies work, about how in a movie, the hero jumps up on the chandelier and swings across it and bombards the enemies, and there's no rule in D&D 5e for that. So you should create, I think the thesis was that you should create moments outside of the rules to allow your characters to feel like badasses, even if it doesn't end up with them having like a one hit kill button. Like, you don't give a chandelier swing like a d20 of damage. No, like you give it like the equivalent of physical attack, but your character's still gonna do that cool thing. That is, I think, bad Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition advice, because it's not advice for fixing 5th edition. It's advice for breaking 5th edition. It's advice for ignoring the game you're playing in favor of being able to say you did something cool. And while there isn't anything necessarily wrong with making your players happy, by framing it as D&D advice, it means that when a person watching that video goes to their D&D game and pulls this off, everyone involved will think, wow, that was a good game of 5e I played. except the thing they think is cool, the chandelier swing, had nothing to do with 5e at all. And in the future, when they play with other people and they try to do that, have that moment again, they'll bump up against the rules and have a bad time. Coming soon, the game to fix this. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Go ahead and advertise your own shit in my chat. I see how it is. But no. So for me, advice that boils down to rule of cool it is never good advice. I definitely think they come from a good place, trying to broaden the horizons of DMs to better the experiences of players everywhere. I can respect that. But I feel like it's good advice, wrong issue, wrong framing. There's definitely a better way for that information to get out to players to inspire them, but not with a war game like 5th edition, I guess. So TLDR, a well-designed game should have rule of cool already implemented. If it doesn't, you're breaking the game and should probably be playing something else. Raglan asks, actually, this is a great segue. Raglan tells me to talk about camera angles. If you have been watching any of my one-shots that I do on this channel, you will notice that I fairly frequently will describe things from the perspective of a fictional audience, right? What was the most recent one I did? We did the Mario Kart one. Was the Christmas one before that, or was the Sonic one before that? I did Christmas in July. I think Sonic's birthday's in June. So I think it went Sonic, Christmas, Mario Kart. Sorry, I'm burping. You pulled a camera angle bit on Sunday and confused the fuck out of my players. Yeah. That's something you really have to have established. So frequently, I will do a camera angle bit where I'll treat it like it's a movie. And I'll describe, as your characters exit this room, the camera lingers. They leave the frame, and the camera slowly zooms in onto this detail in the back corner that none of them noticed, right? And then I say, and then we go back, and then we cut back to your characters. I reference swipes and twists and rotations, and I describe information that the players need to have, that the characters don't, from the viewpoint of a fictional audience. Because going back to that whole thing about the reality of the world, of the objective world, there are inherently at least 2 layers of meta. There's 3 layers if you include my streamings, right? There's the game world. Then above that, looking down, are the players. And then above that even further, looking down at everything, is the Twitch audience. And I have to be constantly switching my focus between all 3 of those levels to make sure all 3 of them are being properly serviced, so it's entertaining on all 3 levels. If I ignore the game world in favor of the players in chat, then nothing happens, and there's no adventure, and there's no reason. This could be just chatting stream, right? If I focus on the players, which is an issue that I had in my first couple of one-shots, where I focused primarily on the players in the game world and I ignored the audience, then the audience does not get that feedback from a streamer they're expecting, and they're like, I can just watch this when it's not live as a podcast, and they leave. They don't stay. They don't stay. And then that's a failure as a stream. And again, if I focus on the audience, then the players feel left out. Ren says, like the bomb under the table, an essential nugget for narrative that acknowledges lack of POV info. I'm trying to remember who was I watching who literally did a video on cinematic camera angles about information. I don't think it was Matt. Was it Matt? Was it an old Matt Colville video I was watching? He literally uses bomb under the table as an example. The audience needs to know that the bomb is under the table, because that creates tension on the level of the players and the audience. They know that something is happening, but the characters don't. And that gives the audience tension while allowing the characters to react as though nothing is wrong, which makes the tension higher because now it's not will the bomb explode, it's will the characters find out about the bomb in time to stop it from exploding. You struggle with audience engagement on AP streams. You started basically treating it like TV taping. Yeah. Matt had something, but it wasn't bomb under the table. It was like something happening in the woods. He took it from Hitchcock. Okay. Yeah, basically. So I learned that technique, not from Hitchcock, not from YouTubers talking about TTRPGs. I learned it from Super Sentai. Now, one of my guiltiest pleasures is watching tokusatsu. I love Power Rangers. I love Kamen Rider. I love Super Sentai. I'm trying to get into Ultraman. There is something very special about watching a weekly program, a weekly fantasy program aimed at children, sure, but focused around using physical props to create special effects. I prefer more modern Sentai. Watching like the 90s stuff is really difficult because of how dated the techniques are. But even then, some of the camera shots in the 90s Toku is fucking inspired. It's so good. You learn a lot. Not to derail, but have you watched? No, I have not watched Black Sun yet. I am told there is no subtext. That they're spoilers for Kamen Rider Black Sun. This is a trigger warning, quite frankly. There is a moment where they recreate the murder of George Floyd within the narrative of the movie as analog for oppression, for an oppressed class. I'm told it's not offensive, but it's definitely kind of a gut punch for people who are watching it who are not prepared for that. The entire movie is about oppression of a lower class. So it makes sense they would draw from that, but also it feels a little too soon. But I'm an American, and this was made for a Japanese audience, so I'm choosing not to judge it until I've seen it myself. I might watch it and be like, oh no, this is too gratuitous. Meatloaf, can you fucking not? Brisket? Wait, hold on. Who is it? Brisket, can you not get caught up in the wires? Please? What are you doing? Why are you down there? No, Meatloaf is over here causing problems. Brisket is down there causing problems. One moment. Brisket, what are you even doing? You don't need to be back there. There's no reason for you to be back there. Come on. No, come on. Over here. That's right. All right. Well, if you're going to be like that, you got to let the audience see you. No, come here. He tries to run. Ugh. Everyone say hello to Brisky Boy. Everyone. Oh, my legs. Oh, God, I'm so old. Everyone say hello to the criminal. Hi, everyone. Look how happy he is. He has aged 10 years in a day. We have all these kittens in the house. He has gone from a spry, young little gentleman to being a cranky old man. He is so pissed at everything. Down you go. I love you. Meatloaf, are you? Meatloaf. Meaty. Hey, buddy. Come here. Oh, don't fall. Hi. We're going to go and show everyone what a good boy you are. And this is Meatloaf. Hi. He's been very cuddly. He is a good boy, but also he broke a bowl yesterday. He knocked a glass bowl off a counter and it shattered and it went everywhere, and it was Dad's favorite mixing bowl, wasn't it, Meatloaf? Uh-huh. Meatloaf is still a kitten. He still has that pep, that pizzazz. But he's not as kitten as the other kittens. You guys want to see the other kittens? I'll grab one, because I can't really control both of them. Why is your mixing bowl light enough for a cat to push? It was not. He put his whole body in the sink to lick every molecule out of that bowl, and when he lifted his head, the whole bowl came up with him, and it went flip, 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 boom, shatter. Meatloaf is so exciting. He's a good boy. I'm going to go grab the kittens real quick. Give me a second. Enjoy this peek into my dirty house. The small fur balls are sleeping under the bed, so I shall not bother them. I shall not disturb them. If I hear them rustling about, I'll bring them and we'll say hello. In the meantime, what if we posted cat faces until God's return? What if? What if, though? What if you had done that? Can you imagine a world where you had done that? I have once again forgotten what we were talking about, so I'm going to move on. I returned very quickly. Well, I just poked my head in, and they weren't available, so I came back. So, let's move on to... You were talking about something... Okay, sure. Just advertise in my chat. I see how it is. Bandit asks, what do you think it takes to gain inspiration? I'm going to assume that this means inspiration, like in D&D 5e. And my answer is, once again, I prefer games where there are clear-cut, where instead of having to make up how it works, there are clear-cut mechanics for how it works. So, for example, whenever I play, my games are generally based on lasers and feelings. Okay? That's how it is, right? And in lasers and feelings, if one of your dice rolls on your stat number, you gain a resource. In some games, it's an automatic use of your special power. In some, it's a token you can spend later, so on and so forth. When something special happens, X happens when Y, right? In like Powered by the Apocalypse games, this is even noodlier, where it specifically tells you from what number to what number is a bad result, what number to what number is an okay result, what number to what number is a good result, and then what the best number is that gets you something special, right? Be it tokens or health or whatever have you. Inspiration in D&D, I feel, is loose because they wanted to give DMs the opportunity to reward it for more than just one thing. If they only made it about combat, then combat players would always get inspiration and role players wouldn't. If they made it tied directly to role-playing, then combat players would never get inspiration and therefore never be able to make use of it. So the whole give it out when your players deserve it as a reward is loose because they're like, we don't want to pigeonhole it, but the result is that there's no way for a player to be like, if I do this, I will be rewarded. If I go out of my way to attempt something, I will be rewarded. That only works if the DM is paying attention and is aware that that thing is difficult for you, which isn't the case for a lot of DMs. The usage of inspiration to give you advantage is a mechanical issue separate from how I feel about awarding inspiration. A lot of DMs who play 5e just forget to give inspiration out, right? There's also always, like, the concern that when you have a DM who's played a lot of campaigns, right? They've seen players try a lot of stuff. There's always the concern that you're not trying to be good. You're trying to be better than some previous player your DM experienced. If the bar for good playership is consistently raised, unless a DM is aware of this and takes actions to lower their expectations, chances are a new player who does reach out of their comfort zone, who would have deserved to receive an inspiration for doing that, will not receive that inspiration because it feels so much lesser compared to that really cool thing that other player did that other campaign. This actually loops back around to reward systems, right? Because you should be rewarding people for doing the actions that fulfill the fantasy. But if people do the actions and they are punished for it, or they do the actions and they don't receive that reward, they're not incentivized to keep doing those actions, and the fantasy starts to break down. So game design is cyclical. It goes around and around. You cannot really talk about one thing without it looping back and connecting to something else, which is what I love about game design, because I am just so autistic. Hi, Tab. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, that seems to be better rewarded with things like situational advantage. What it actually rewards, I don't want to get into. Specifically, the idea of inspiration as it, like the mechanics of what inspiration is and how inspiration should be awarded. I do not think that trying to fix both those things in the same discussion is helpful, because if you change one, then whatever you planned for the second is no longer valid because you changed it. But if you change that to fix that, then whatever you change, it just gets messy. It gets really, really, really messy. The Matt Colville video, the Matt Colville video that I actually just shared with Sono on Twitter about dice math actually talks about what the mechanical benefit of having an advantage actually does and how Matt thinks it should be changed, which would entirely alter how inspiration should be delivered. So I would go watch that if I were you. I just go watch all of Matt Colville's videos if I were you, quite frankly. I've never found a better person to take advice from. Say la vie. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Raglan asks, what are some commonly held beliefs or conventions in the TTRPG space that you disagree with? Now, this feels like it could be the soapbox springboard for one hell of a rant on the white-knuckled, bloody grip that Wizards of the Coast has on the industry. But that's been talked to death, so I'm going to talk about something else. Do any of you know of a little individual named Satine Phoenix? I know at least one person in my chat is visibly cringing right now. Visibly cringing right now. Oh, fuck her. Okay, yeah, no, you guys know Satine. You guys know Satine. You've met her? I am sorry. Was she at least, she was skeevy? Yeah, no. Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, I've seen the Joker. We live in a society. No, not to get into the specific drama, right? But Phoenix and her husband are abusive individuals who have scammed a lot of people out of their money, physically assaulted some, and definitely should be in court right now for some of the shit we have evidence that they did. There was finally a collection of information about the shit they pulled over the last few years, put together and shared widely across TTRPG Twitter about 6 or so months ago. So they were basically booted out of their own company. They could not complete their businesses. And the issue, how this ties back to commonly held beliefs and conventions in the TTR space that I disagree with. Don't forget to say allegedly a whole bunch. No, I have said so far, that information has been gathered and shared on Twitter. I haven't said, oh no, I did say it. Allegedly. I believe that they allegedly did those things. Okay? That's my stance. I believe they did those things. The information that I have been given makes me think that the allegations are true. Okay? Satine recently had a comeback on Instagram where You can also substitute allegedly within Minecraft. Hey, that's true. That's true. In Minecraft. Satine recently did a comeback over Instagram where they basically shoved their husband under the bus. They try to place all the blame on the husband for everything, but also didn't take responsibility for half the allegations. They acted as though they were the victim in this. It's very skeevy, right? And the problem is, it's sort of working. There is this concept that there is a concept that the TTRPG community is a measurable, knowable, physical space. There is this belief that if you like D&D, if you like TTRPG, then you are part of a hashtag TTRPG fam. And while that hashtag is good for advertising, you know, if everyone's looking at the same hashtag, you'll see stuff there. If you want engagement and you post an ask meme with a hashtag, you'll get people engaging. But it's created this unrealistic expectation that the TTRPG space is somehow curated and safe, and that if you see someone in it, it means they're okay. And that is not the case whatsoever. This is still the internet. This is still fucking Twitter. Ignoring the fact that the people who use Instagram and the people who use Twitter are not one-to-one. Not everyone uses the same websites. So not everyone has the same information. There's a division of community just in what platforms you use. And it's not like there's the Instagram people and the Twitter people. There are people who use both. There are people who use neither. There are people who only hear about stuff happening in those spaces over on Reddit. Like, there is no one individual TTRPG fam. No one is controlling it. So people who are there to scam and grift and abuse will use that as a mask to allow themselves to weasel into these sub-communities where they can cause harm. Satine, specifically using Instagram for her comeback, is very telling. She knows that she would not be welcome in a Twitter space. Not this soon. After the call out. Those posts are still circulating, warning everyone. There's still websites listing all of the allegations with dates and evidence that is still circulating Twitter. So she was smart, in a way, to use Instagram as the core of her comeback. Because for those people who are part of the TTRPG fam, but only use Instagram, all they see is this poor woman who has been damaged. You still don't know what she's allegedly done. Allegedly, physical assault, sexual assault, emotional abuse, theft, fraud, multiple Kickstarters where individuals were threatened with blacklisting from the industry if they didn't work unpaid. It's a lot of shit. Just a lot of shit. Just so much shit. From people who have simply worked with them to people who have just been in their circles. It's bad. Don't bother. Don't look it up, honestly. But they are allegedly a serious abuser who had been caught out and lambasted across Kickstarter and Twitter. But from the perspective of the Instagram audience, this individual shows up using hashtag TTRPGFam to tell their story and have this grand comeback to the TTRPG space. And then they see these people who are from Twitter coming to Instagram to lambast this woman for things they don't even understand. All they know is, oh, those are the bad TTRPG fan people. They shouldn't be in the community. They're the ones who are bullying this poor woman. And she was here first, so we're going to believe her first, and so on and so forth, and yada, 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 yada. This belief that there can be or should be a large umbrella that encompasses everyone who even remotely likes tabletop role-playing games is incorrect and potentially dangerous. And also, it works really well for businesses. Like, can you, like, okay, we're gonna get onto a D&D soapbox. One of the things that I hear from D&D players a lot when they hear about things like sexual abuse, racism, transphobia. It's like trans what? Transerotic? No, that's not the right word, transphobia. When they hear about these things happening in D&D and OSR spaces, a lot of the knee-jerk reactions is, that's not in my D&D. That's not the D&D that I love. My D&D, the people that I know that the D&D fam that I love would never do those bad things. That's not the issue. Those things exist in your spaces regardless of whatever opinion or idea of the larger D&D play base is. There's what you have been sold a D&D family is, and what people, the number of people who are actually in this community who do these bad things. So when you have this concept of D&D players are X, D&D players are Y, in a positive way, it covers for the abusers that still exist. Any community can have people who are abusive. Any community can have people who are toxic. And automatically assuming that everyone who likes something that you like is an okay person because they like that thing you like is naive as fuck and incredibly dangerous. So that's something that I do not enjoy about the TTRPG community. The TTRPG community? It's one too many T's, We are halfway through the questions, believe it or not. And it's been about 2 hours. If you're still interested, I can keep going. If you have any other questions, the fucking crazy thing is how much this is a community-driven belief. It's not like Wizards talks about this. Exactly. It's specific. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that tabletop role-playing games, for a lot of people, this is a hot take, a lot of people use tabletop games as a replacement for therapy. And there's nothing wrong with using the play space to play out scenarios that relate to your mental stuff, right? Like, some of my best characters I've ever role-played were pieces of my trauma that I fleshed out into a full character, and then I played through a story where they got to interact with that trauma differently. The issue is that because these players think they found a safe space, they want to encourage that space. Some players do not have that safe space in their life. D&D is the only place they can express those parts of themselves and receive positive feedback. That has nothing to do with the game that Wizards of the Coast published. Wizards of the Coast did not publish Fantasy Therapy 101, book 105, right? What happened is that the players and the DM at that specific table created a safe space where they could play through those things. But then the credit for that experience is given to the game system, which then expands out to being credited to the franchise, which then expands out to being credited to the player base, and then you have this hashtag TTRPG fam. Because they want to believe that the experience they shared with people they trusted is the experience that everyone else has. And some people, when they find evidence that the brand does not love them, that the TTRPG fam has abusers in it, that abuse and racism and all these bad things that don't belong in their safe spaces, oh my god, I realized I was talking about kids in their safe spaces, and I took psychic damage just then. There's nothing wrong with having a safe space be a tabletop role-playing game, but there needs to be the understanding that your experience is not the game, it is your game, and being naive to take your experiences and expect it of everyone on the internet who enjoys click-clack dice is dangerous at worst and ridiculously naive at best. But when people who are interested in that, who want to believe in that, find evidence to the contrary, the reaction is either utter betrayal and heartbreak, because how could D&D hurt me like this? Or it is denial. Those things can't happen in D&D because that's not my experience. D&D is the safe space where I play a tiefling bard and act flamboyantly because I'm too afraid to come out to my parents, right? It definitely isn't a place where people roleplay out rapes and pillagings and all sorts of racism genocides. Like, it can't be that, because this is my safe space. How could it be anything else? So, once you have an audience of people who want to believe in easy, simple answers, it's really easy for grifters and abusers to come in, encourage that, and then use it to their advantage. This ties into my religious trauma. My roommate and I have talked about people who like religious leaders who are well aware, who like haven't even drank the Kool-Aid, who are well aware that they are selling incorrect answers to a scared and malleable flock in exchange for personal gain. So my religious trauma bumps up against the TTRPG fam stuff really roughly. So I'm just no. And even it continues on to me, right? I'm an influencer. I'm a content creator. I am a VTuber. I have a little 2D puppet that I bop around 3 days a week playing Minecraft and telling you stories about myself. Should you trust me? Should you believe that I have your best interests at heart just because I'm likable and you believe that the content that I create is good? I mean, it's to my detriment to say this, but no, I'm just a guy. I'm just a fellow on the internet with a microphone and lots of privilege, right? Like, Jun, you are my IRL friend. We were friends before all this, right? This is unrelated. This is all parasocial relationships and stuff, right? I personally am in a position of power that with the right kind of person could be abused badly, like really badly. You see it happen all the time in Minecrafting spaces. How many Minecrafters are revealed to be fucking pedophiles like 5 or 6 years into their careers? How many of them go to conventions, realize they have literal masses of young individuals willing to do anything they say for any sort of recognition, and then abuse that? The numbers aren't great, I'll be honest with you. The numbers are not great. And while I would like to be able to assure you that I will never disappoint. I'm not a pedophile, for one thing, okay? But you can't even trust that. I'm just some guy on the internet. You only see the parts of me that I show you. People who defend D&D tend to only see the parts they want to see. And that's understandable, because admitting that something you like has racism, sexism, dangerous content in it that should be excised is hard. It's hard to take what you remember, what you know of this thing, and then combine it with new information that paints it in a negative light. This is why when people are called out as pedophiles, as sex pests, they always end up with a portion of their audience who just sticks their fingers in their ears and they refuse to admit it. They refuse to listen. They go any excuse they want. Yogscast Shin, to name one. I was heartbroken when the information came out of how badly he tortured the other female Yogs members. Like, he was such a dick to them. He was like almost criminally a dick to at least one of them, right? And I had based my entire brand by creating content in his style because of how much I loved his videos growing up. And for a lot of people, they wanted to knee-jerk deny it because they couldn't coalesce the new information with the person they knew and trusted. But that person was always a product. The concept of that YouTuber was being sold to you, part and parcel. We weren't being sold the entire man. There's no way you could know all of a creator, no matter how many personal stories they tell. There's no way you can ever really know someone front to back, cover to cover. There's always going to be parts of myself that I don't talk about on stream. There's going to be parts of myself that I don't want to share with you because human beings are not products. They aren't clear cut. They aren't easy to ship out. There's parts of me that I do not bring up during streams because it has nothing to do with the content that I want to make. And if that information were to come to light and it didn't connect with what you think you know about me and it disappointed you, then... And if that information was that I had harmed someone, it sucks. Parasocial relationships kind of suck, I say, while actively having a donation bar directly above my head. I looked over at the... Fuck. God damn. Ugh. If any of my younger viewers watch this, just be safe, be careful. You don't have to look at every person on the internet with suspicion. Thank you for using the donate command, Tegan. I really appreciate that. Just be careful. Always expect people to disappoint you. Expect products and brands and companies to have their best interests at heart. Beyond entertaining you, they want to make money. Beyond entertaining you, I would like to make money. I do not think I will ever come to a point in my life where I have to abuse someone for that. But just in case, guys, any creator, you have to be careful. You have to always have that separation of entertainer and audience in mind. Never let it cross over from entertainer and audience to friend and equal, because that is when the abusers have you and they can do whatever they want. And it's heartbreaking every time. I'm sorry this got really fucking deep. Thank you, Tegan. You get a jolly jangle of cheer bell. Thank you so much for your $20. God. In TTRPG spaces, the abuse can be especially heinous because not only of the TTRPG fam, but also because of how the obfuscation of social media to product, right? Like, okay, here's the thing. I followed Onslaught 6 on Twitter because they wrote a game system that I liked. See You Space Cowboy, okay? I did not follow them on Twitter until after I bought their product and liked it. I did not buy in knowing who they were as a person or who they show themselves on the internet as a person. I did not like their personal brand until after I had already bought into their product, okay? And their product, it was originally a Kickstarter, right? Their product, for a lot of people, the first time anyone heard of them was through their Kickstarter, where they saw the product, they wanted the product, they bought the product, and then maybe they went to Twitter and saw more. If, theoretically, an author of a product is a bad person and has racist hot takes or has allegations of sexual assault, you're not going to see that on the Kickstarter. You're only going to see that if you look them up on Twitter. The obfuscation of information across different social media platforms means that even if one person has been thoroughly canceled on Twitter, they can continue having a professional, they can still exist in the professional TTRPG space in perpetuity. Yeah, the Kickstarter starts with fresh branding. I got a decade of bad tweets. Yeah. Like the Bayonetta VA thing. Yeah. If you only know them as the author of a piece of content and you have not done the research into what they are personally, they could just be an absolute asshole of a person and you'd never know. In the TTRPG space, as long as you're selling a dice set as a stretch goal, no one's going to look you up. Like, no one's going to bother to look you up. And even if people come from Twitter to lambast the comments being like, hey, don't back this guy incredibly was accused of rape at the last convention, like, the people who make the Kickstarter have control over those. They're not going to keep those messages up. So there's this lack of information flowing between the people who are part of TTRPG Twitter and the people who are actively buying these products, and that can, even if you get banned from one location. My wife in the other room. Oh, he is an asshole. Okay, all right, good to know. Nice that you say it now on this very closed, like closed garden, walled garden Twitch stream. No one will ever know. You're still good to keep kickstarting your projects, Onslaught. No, you're fine. But you know what I'm getting at? Like, there's definitely a need for a destruction of this assumption that these parasocial relationships are real and automatically safe just because hobbies are shared. And I feel like that's something that is not covered in a lot of internet safety classes. Like back when I was a kid, it was don't tell your strangers your full name and address. And now it's like, oh, I can get deeply emotionally attached to the delusion of an idea of a person who I don't know, who lives states away and doesn't know me personally, who's never seen my face or heard my voice. And millions of other people can have the exact same interaction and it be entirely one-sided. Like, that's terrifying. The internet is terrifying. Twitch streams are terrifying. Creators are everything's terrifying. Just go live it under a rock or something. Delete the internet right now. Just end stream. Just done. I say it with a donation bar still over my head. Oh man. Moving on. Bandit asks, how much should be planned versus improv in a single session? I am a big fan of one-page dungeons. I'm a big fan of one-page DM notes. Now, obviously, if you're playing a game with large stat blocks like D&D or Pathfinder, you don't always have the luxury of one-page notes, simply because of how much information you need. But for me personally, actually, I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. I have my DM book on a shelf right up here. Ugh. Got this cute little witchy book off of Amazon. Thank you. Wow, Doc, this is heavy. Yeah, sorry, guys. Sorry. But I have my DM book, and I try to keep one-shots on a 1 to 2 page spread, including rules. Let me see if I can find a good explanation. Okay, yeah, sure. My handwriting is shit, but this was a one-shot that I ran when I was testing my first published TTRPG, What's So Cool About Being Wahoo. In it, the players were brought to a farm where a overly sized chicken and its egg was on top of the barn, hiding from something. Something spooked the chicken. And the farmer needed the egg back because it was a magic egg that produced power to the nearby city. In the coop was like a giant electrical socket, and the egg was supposed to go in it to give power to the nearby town. So this had multiple notes, 4 characters, and I put the entire dungeon on a single page. You can see the chicken on the roof with the egg. You can see a dog in a doghouse. You can see a cow in a pasture. You can see the hen house with some sort of screwdriver behind it. And you can see a farmer sitting on a box. Okay? Then on the other side, you have what appears to be a drawing of a little fox and then some information about the characters. This was a 2 to 3 hour session. This was all the notes I took. So here's what the notes mean. Okay? So you have Bertha on the roof. She looks angry. You have the farmer sitting on a box. The box is the farmer is titled Farmer Brown in parentheses. It's the only name in parentheses. On this side, you'll see I have a doodle that says Farmer Brown is a bandit fox. Okay, so Farmer Brown is not Farmer Brown. There's Brent, which is a dog, and there's Bill the bull. Okay, I knew that the animals were mad because a fox came by, tried to steal an egg, trapped the farmer in a box, the box he's sitting on, and is currently disguised as the farmer. I knew that the little drill behind the chicken coop was evidence that someone had purposefully spooked the chicken or was trying to get into the hen house. And then there's actually a laundry line in front of the bull with laundry flapping on it. My intent was that if players wanted to distract the bull, there would be some obvious red sheets dangling on a laundry line nearby. So the dog's on a chain. The bull is behind a fence. There's a mistaken identity, a stolen identity in the farmer. And this was the entire adventure. Just bam. One page. This page has information about the players themselves, the names, their classes, their pronouns, and bada bing, bada boom. That was the entire adventure. A lot of it required me to improv. So I had to improv very PM64, coincidentally. Yeah, very PM60. Yeah. So the question of how much needs to be prep, how much needs to be improv, you need the bones of the adventure and one or two set pieces that you want to happen. In my case, I knew that I wanted the bull to smash out of the gate and go for the Farmer Brown. Like, that was the end goal. No matter what the players did, I knew that something would trigger that bull to go into a rage and Kool-Aid Man through the gate. That was all I had planned. There was also the fact that at some point, the farmer would be revealed as the fox, right? The mystery would solve itself and the bull would go after the fox one way or another. Those were the two scenes that I knew I wanted to happen. In the end, what ended happening, you try to create one situation per hour of gameplay, adjust to needs and tastes. A situation per hour is a separate rant. I don't want to get into right now. It'll dilute this, but hold on to that thought. Remind me to tell you about situation per hour. So in the end, the players knew that something was fishy. They knew that something wasn't right. They had cottoned on to the fact that someone on this farm wasn't on the up and up, but they had no idea how to flush him out. So at that point, I, the GM, decided this is when the fox reveals himself. The fox wants access to the egg. So they have all the characters in like a circle drinking tea to talk about their feelings. The Farmer Brown uses the opportunity to grab the egg and make a run for it. At which point, the disguise fails. He's revealed to be a fox, and all the players have now caught on like, okay, he has the egg. We need the egg. Go get the egg. And it turned into a chase sequence. They caught him, and they got the egg, and they succeeded. And the adventure ended with the bull finally breaking through the fence and chasing the fox off into the distance. So I included those two set pieces. The fox reveals himself and the bull bursts out of the gate. And I waited to deploy them in response to the players. Would it be more cool if the bull got out earlier in the adventure? Yes. But they interacted with the bull. They didn't want to do more with the bull. So instead, I used the bull as the ending framing device. I still got my cool moment. It just wasn't necessarily in the same way that I intended it to be when I wrote it. So yeah, that's my advice. Improv pretty much everything. Unless you're the kind of player DM who cannot improv, in which case there isn't anything wrong with writing out a step-by-step dialogue tree if that's how you want to do it, as long as your players are okay with that. There's nothing worse than having a DM who, how do I word this without making it sound, because it can sound really ableist. There are some people who are unable to DM in my style. And I'm not saying that my style is the best style or the only style. What matters is that the style the players expect and the style the DM is offering need to match up. You can't just say, oh, I'm DMing this game. You need to inform people like, hey, I'm not good with improv, so it's going to be more like a point-and-click adventure where if you poke the right buttons, the dialogue that I intend for you to have will pop out. Like, I have dialogue trees, or like there's one specific thing you'd have to do to trigger the next scene because I'm not really good at making stuff on the fly. And then if the players are okay with it and willing, they will interact with the adventure on that level. They will not try and push the DM to DM in a way that they are not comfortable or capable of doing. I've had players who've come to my table for some reason expecting a point-and-click adventure. At which point, once I cotton on to them Monkey Islanding it, I'll then be like, I'm going to be honest with you. There's no amount of poking around that will create the perfect ending. I just need to know what you want to do, and then I alter the material so that you get what needs to be gotten. You're not gonna miss anything if you don't click on the banana in the corner. And then the players are usually like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and their style changes. Similarly, Dungeon Craft has a wonderful video on one-page DM notes, which gets a little bit into how he homebrews D&D. A lot of it is just him talking about his own homebrew rules. Oh, banana in the corner. But there is a adventure that he does notes for where the party is in a cave, a dungeon, going after a minotaur. You can actually still listen on my YouTube. You can listen to Beware the Bufflewump, the one-shot adventure that I ran for my weekly table over a year ago at this point now, where I took the core concept of Dungeon Craft's Minotaur Dungeon and converted it into a game for my table. So here, this is a 2-pager. So you have the basic notes here, detailing what's in each room with information about it, the core concepts, 5 core concepts, and then a brief numbered map. Okay? And that's the entire adventure. The core concepts: Minotaur Cave, toxic mushrooms, animal skins covering passages, narrow hallways, stained with blood. Those are the 5 things that this dungeon is. So it's Minotaur Cave. How do we design an N64 collectathon TTRPG? That's a fascinating question that I will need to have serious thought about. I was biting my finger. I bite my finger when I'm thinking real hard about game design. But for a second there, it looked like I was going for a sexy looking. No. I will have to think about that. Remind me on Twitter. I'll probably do a thread about it tomorrow or the next day once I've had some time to obsess about it. But yes. And then each of the 6 rooms in the dungeon are numbered. Okay? What a coincidence. I also bite your finger when I'm thinking about game design. Funny. So how the design works is that the dungeon is meant to emulate the sensation of being lost in a cave. Every time a player went from one room to another one, unless they were backtracking to the room immediately previous, they would roll a d6 to figure out where they ended. Right? The players were told this too. They were told, like, hey, listen, it's meant to emulate being lost in a cave. You can try, but you're going to still feel lost in the cave because, that's the point. And they didn't feel cheated out of the experience. One player did try to still make markings to mark things off. And when the markings magically disappear, they realized, oh, we're lost because there's some sort of weird magic bullshit going on in this cave. This isn't just Gata trying to do it. There's a thing here. They loved it. They loved it. The players are in chat right now, so they can probably tell you how they felt about it. But if they rolled a 1, they found themselves back at the entrance. If they rolled room 2, they found 2 giant bats, a dead body, and the dead body had 4 GP on it with flow gauntlets. A lootable. Okay? Room 3 had 5 beetles in it. Room 4 was a dead end. Room 5 was the boss's chamber. And then if anyone rolled a 6, no matter where they were, it was an interaction with the Minotaur. Okay? Now, in my notes, you will note that I list under 6, Minotaur, and then Bufflewump. That's interesting, isn't it? That's because, do you remember the bat guano? I think about the bat guano room frequently. I was thinking about the bat guano room specifically when I made that long-ass thread the other day about TTRPGs and consequences. I loved the bat guano room. We had to Google how flammable bat guano was because Jun's character had a fire stick and they pulled it out and they ignited it while poking their head into the room that had been previously described as being thick with the gaseous scent of piles and piles of bat guano. So we had to Google how flammable is bat guano, and Google said, very. It was so good. It was so good. Don't get me off topic, because I can go on about TTRPGs and consequences all the time. The answer was yes, very. But no. So rolling a 6 has 2 options: Minotaur or Bufflewump. Well, why is that? I didn't write it down in my notes because I personally knew that the goal of the dungeon was for the players to feel lost, the players to get separated, and for them to interact with what their character thinks is the monster on multiple occasions. And it worked out perfectly. Some of the characters were completely separated. 1 or 2 stayed together. One of the characters who was separated and only had glow sticks to light their way was the first one to roll a 6. And I described the Minotaur in a way that was only visible with a very low amount of light. And it attacked, and I described how it attacked, and you can watch this on YouTube, but it established that the Minotaur was in the cave and was a threat. So later, when another character rolled a 6, they encountered the Minotaur. The players hadn't quite cottoned on yet, and the characters had no way of knowing this, but the way I described the Minotaur was very different. This character had full light, and they had full vision of this monster. And they tried to fight it a little bit, but I went out of my way to parallel the descriptions of how I described the previous Minotaur with the one the character was interacting with now. And the player caught on and said, wait a minute, this isn't the same monster that the other character interacted with. And I, the DM, went, no, it's not. There are 2 creatures in this dungeon, and this one doesn't actually want to fight you, while the other one was murderous as heck. The twist was that the actual Bufflewump, who previously lived in this cave, was being framed by a masked murderer who was going around in a Minotaur costume, finding, kidnapping, and killing people, and the Bufflewump had fought the Minotaur and had the current attempted victim, was trying to get them to safety. So that ended up working out really, really great. This actually goes back to the layers of meta and using camera angles. The players were being given information the characters didn't have. The character who found the Bufflewump had no way of knowing what happened with their friend in the Minotaur. They just knew that their friend was lost and there was a Minotaur somewhere. But the players, having experienced both scenes like it were a movie, were able to put 2 and 2 together and realize what the twist was before the characters did. And at that point, it was a matter of them playing their characters to where they also reached that information. Jen says, what was nice is that God I made the room explode, but in a way that didn't hurt my character. It was Looney Tunes style kaboom LMAO. Yes, no, that goes back into TTRPG and consequences, or shenanigans and consequences. And I wrote a nice long thread about that. You can read on Twitter. Good luck finding it. I retweet so much dumb shit all the time. It's basically illegible. But in that moment, the player, Jun, had done a shenanigan, which was poking their head into a darkened room, reaching behind them and striking a match. And then, without any problem from the DM, the players went, how explosive is bat guano? And then Googling on their own and saying, oh no, it's going to explode. That was not a consequence. That was not a punishment scenario, right? When the player did the thing, I, the DM, and they, the player, had no reason to believe that that action would cause an explosion. There was no good reason for that explosion to be actually dangerous. What happened was, both the player characters who were there, I'm like, something has to happen. A consequence has to happen. But it cannot be a punishment. So the room exploded, and I described them being thrown back against the wall, covered in soot from head to foot, but otherwise unharmed, because they needed to see a reaction to the cause, but they did not need to be punished. They did not need to have a negative consequence for their action. If I had explained overtly that lighting anything on fire in this room would cause an explosion, and they did it anyway, even by accident, if they knew there would be a consequence to that shenanigan that was negative, and they still did the shenanigan, then yes, they deserve a punishment. Not because they've been bad, but because it's the logical next step in the sequence of events. Again, game design is super cyclical. So this conversation of one-page dungeon design loops around to shenanigans and consequences, which loops around to fuck. I had a word for it on top of my fucking tongue. Oh yes, rule of 3 game design. A lot of my TTRPG game design takes from video game design, and one of the best design theories I feel for a GM is fucking Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers, Mario games in general, all right, introduced concepts to players in a very specific way. Rule of 3s, yeah! Raglan knows what I'm talking about. Rule of 3s. The first thing you need to do is introduce a concept to a player in a low-risk environment. In Mario 1-1, a Goomba is walking towards you. You can jump on it, you can jump over it, it can hit you, you can fail, but it'll just keep going. Unless you go out of your way, you're not going to die to that Goomba, but the threat it poses to you is made apparent in an otherwise safe environment. If you had to see a Goomba for the first time in the same frame as like some guy with a gun, you're not going to care about the fucking Goomba. You're going to care about the guy with the gun, right? So what you do first is you introduce the concept in a low stakes environment. Then, the next time the concept comes up, you raise the stakes a little bit. Now there are Goombas and also a hole in the ground. Jumping over the Goombas could possibly lead to you falling into the hole in the ground. Even then, this is your first time seeing a hole in the ground, but you already know how to handle Goombas. So it's also introducing a concept in a low-stakes environment. It's the start of that cycle again. As the game continues, the stakes are raised higher and higher, but also subverted and inverted. So you are introduced to Goombas who have wings. It's the same premise, but now it's been flipped around, and it allows your players to interact with things and know stuff is coming. But a good GM will flavor it in a way they don't realize is what you're doing. In my example with Beware the Buffalump, which again, you can go listen to it on YouTube, the first time my player rolled a 6, they encountered the Minotaur. And regardless of what they rolled, that was a low-light environment where neither the Minotaur or the player could see very well. Also, the player was a fairy, so a smaller target, and their description of getting the fuck out of dodge was to go as high as possible so they were out of range of the swing of the weapon and to fly the fuck back the way they came. Okay? They felt in danger. I wasn't going to have the Minotaur one-shot them. No, that was interacting with the Minotaur in a low-stakes environment. The Minotaur was going to swing and slash, and even if it did clip them, it wouldn't have killed them. But the intent of the scene was to make them feel as though they could die in this moment. The terror of the monster was present in my description, but at no point, even before they rolled the 6, at no point was the first interaction with a Minotaur ever meant to be the be-all, end-all. It was, even if the character had engaged in combat, my plan was to have the Minotaur retreat. Introduce it to them in a low-stakes environment. Then you up the stakes. The next time the players meet the Minotaur, it's the Bufflewump, and it's fighting with one arm, and it has a bundle in the other, and it's aggravated. It wants to get out of here, and you're in its way, so it's more aggressive. It raises the stakes. Also, this is the start of a new cycle where I introduce the Bufflewump. The Bufflewump doesn't want to hurt the player, it wants to get away, and will push the player aside if it needs to. But from the player's perspective, they think it's a raising of the stakes. When everyone finally meets the Bufflewump, when initiative is finally rolled and all bets are off, that guy goes at it. In the actual combat, the players get a stunning strike in and actually manage to keep it down. So like it could have been worse. The actual result could have been worse, but in design, it was rule of threes: introduction, escalation, / inversion, and then finally the big whammy. Video game bosses do this really well as well. If you look at any Bowser fight, even in Mario 64, right? Low stakes environment, Bowser jumps and lands on you. The platform is large enough, you're not going to run off unless you're really not paying attention, and you always start the boss fight at full health, so it's low stakes. Once you throw Bowser off once, he starts adding his Flame Breath attack. But he's slow moving, so you can easily dodge the Flame Breath attack. As the game continues, the platform gets smaller and smaller, Bowser gets more and more aggressive, and it's slowly teaching you. If Mario 64 had the first Bowser boss work the same way as the last Bowser boss, no one would get past the first Bowser boss. It'd be too hard. Introduction, escalation / inversion, escalation / inversion. So that's my game design advice to you. Bye, Raggles. I'm glad that you were here for this discussion. Let's see. Do I have any other notes in here? I don't think I have anything worth sharing. No, just lots of various tidbits. What is this? No, just various tidbits from other designs. Let's see here. We only have like 3 or 4 questions left. So if you're still listening, I'm still going. Let's see here. Do you try and follow traditional... Raglan asked, do you try and follow traditional beat maps with terms to your adventures? Or do you use other guidelines? I just went on a huge rant on how I design my adventures. So the quick answer is not really. Oh, what do you think about a 1-hour slash situation? So going back to rule of threes, not only does rule of threes work for making legible game design for your players, it also works for making editable game design. In the last one-shot I ran, it was a Mario Kart one-shot where I homebrewed a racing system for a Laser Than Feelings hack to take place in the Mario universe. You don't need to watch it. I honestly think it was a weaker adventure. But in that adventure, I had planned 3 phases. Introduction, escalation, inversion. To go along with 3 laps, because like 3 laps tends to be the standard for Mario Kart Wow. Yeah, Tav was in that. The initial plan was to have 3 laps. However, if you have something happen 3 times, no, it was a good adventure, and I'm glad you liked it. I think from a design standpoint, it was one of my weaker ones that I've written, right? I can critique good games and say this is less than this other thing I ran for whatever reason, without taking away from the enjoyment of the adventure. What matters is that you and the audience were entertained, and we celebrated Mario Kart's anniversary. I, as a designer, looked at and said, now I've learned for next time. But no. So the issue of trying to time out content is that if you time out beats to happen to a specific IRL amount of time, you run the risk of running out of content or having too much content and ruining the flow. I usually stream for 3 hours at a time with a break somewhere around the 2-hour mark, right? The first lap, the introduction and first lap took 1 hour and 45 minutes, if my memory is correct. It took almost double the time I planned for the players to get through one full lap of the track. And even then, they didn't properly pass the finish line before we went into the break, I don't think. The plan was to have them do all 3 laps. But I knew that wouldn't be logistic. We were at our breaking point. We had 1 hour of stream time left, and because of how much had happened in that 2-hour time span, it felt like they had gone through the introduction and escalation phases, even if the actual escalation phase hadn't happened yet. So the second lap ended up being the final lap. They went around and they went through and they went final lap. Well, it was because of all the shenanigans they did along the way. There was a lot of jokes. There was a lot of laughing. There was a lot of poking at stuff. They were having fun. Instead of trying to push players through to meet a quota, I had to pivot the content to match the experience. I knew that if I removed the middle section and just took the final bit and slid it into its place, in my mind, knowing what I had planned, it would still feel like a full 3-part adventure. Having 3 parts, or even writing 4 parts, knowing that one needs to be picked up and discarded mid-play, allows your adventures to remain cohesive without forcing your players to slog through content that feels out of place. If I had forced them to do all 3 laps, it would have felt like they reached where the finale would have been, and then we kept going. And that would have made, retroactively, all the good stuff feel like a slog. People will remember the funny bits, but more often than not, what they'll remember the most is how they physically felt at the end of the adventure. Sticking the landing is paramount. Even in a weekly adventure, even in a weekly campaign, sticking the landing session by session is paramount to making sure your players remember that session as having been a good one. Yeah, Brisket's back there yowling. Hey, buddy. I love you. What a good boy. He's just within reach. He's sniffing my finger. He does not want to be bothered. The flexibility you introduced made it feel good. Exactly. Oh, you're seriously behind? I'm sorry. I know I have lag. Sorry, bud. Onslaught says, yeah, I know players are going to do that too. That's why I have kind of anemic content that way. If I think this might be 45 minutes, it will almost surely get an hour. Yeah, no, that's the thing, though. Even if you do rule of 3, in my mind, right, some people don't agree with this. In my mind, if you have a cohesive 3-part adventure and your players blaze through it really quickly, the urge to keep playing is high because you still have time to play and you like playing. Fight that urge. End the game early. End it on that high note. Spend the rest of your session time just talking about how good the session was. Just chatting about stuff. Just turn it into a good hangout. Never push past what feels like a natural ending. Even if it's remarkably early. Like, if it ends remarkably early, then that's a learning lesson for the DM. Oh, my game design wasn't enough to engage them long enough. And that can be brought forward. If you try and push it or pad it out or extend it too long, it ends up retroactively ruining the entire session, and then you learn a very different lesson. So, okay. I think that's all I have to say on the topic. Let's see here. Oh, Boomer asks, what safety tools do you implement and how? Oh, chat's behind, so I'll wait for a second. That's hard for me because of logistic reasons, since we got to go to work after, but it is good advice. Again, these are my opinions. This is information that has been taken from me specifically, my experiences. Not everyone's D&D advice is going to match your specific situation. Take what's useful, smile and nod, or whatever isn't. Boomer asks, what safety tools do you implement and how? So in my weekly game, I personally feel that it is before creating a game world, before arbiting rules, a game master's number one priority is the safety of their players. I feel that a dungeon master's first responsibility or anything else is to make sure that everyone is comfortable and happy and having a good time. This doesn't mean that your players can't be having a bad time, right? You can still kill their characters if you're in a game that involves killing characters. You can still reveal your devious machinations about their backstory, but it needs to be the kind of, oh no, where they're like, oh no, right? Like there's a difference to that, as opposed to, I'm not having a good time. In my weekly games, this isn't a flex, but the players that I play with, we have very open communication, and I spend as much time listening to how they speak to me as I do to what they're saying. If I, at any point, get a vibe that something is off, the game stops. I call it out the moment I see it, and we talk about it. We ask the player, is this okay? Is everyone okay with this scenario? And if not, can we change it to make it better? Or do we need to get the fuck on? Do we need to move the fuck on? And my players know, we verbalized previously, that if they do not feel comfortable speaking about it in the chat or at the table, they can just text me. They can send it to me as anonymously as they want to. And there is no repercussions for that. That communication is paramount. The exception to this is bureaucracy. My favorite thing to do is make PCs pay their taxes or other BS. Oh my god, can you fucking imagine? The consequence for your shenanigan is the taxmen now know where you live. That's so good. My games don't begin until we have filled out a triggers form. There is a safety form that I use, a generic safety form, where the options are, actually, let me pull it up on my phone. I'll read it to you. I'll tell you exactly which one it is, which safety one it is. It is, yes, the Digital RPG Consent Checklist by Monty Cook Games. I love this. MCDM Productions just released a safety kit, which I skimmed and I like. It's aimed more at D&D players, so it focuses more on content that would be in D&D. I don't know if I've sent it to you, Tav, but I believe on some of my one shots with players who I haven't played before, I have sent them a copy and be like, fill this out, update it if you need to, let me know. Anything you put down here as a no-go is a no-go for everyone. I compile the answers for all the players, including myself, and I put out a list saying, this is all the content that someone says no. At all. Not even jokingly. This is the line. This is the content that someone has said, okay, but not on screen. Then there's the stuff where it's like, this doesn't bother me at all, it's fine. Okay? So let me actually pull up. I'm actually organizing a game for myself, an IRL table, and I just got back all the results, and so I compiled it. So straight up, Veils. I listed Veils are bugs, demons, eyeballs, harm to children, harm to animals, rats, and spiders. That's all stuff that has to happen off screen. If a kid dies, we are not going to see it happen in the moment. Wait, you can just game for fun? /S. I honestly should have sent you a request. I had played with Tegan before, and I had played with Rocky before. Actually, no, you were Tavern. I think you did get one for the Christmas one. I think you did get one for Christmas in July, and that's why I didn't offer you one for Mario Kart, was because you'd already filled one out. Am I misremembering that? I feel like if I didn't do that, that's on me. I should have. I honestly should have. CUSC, CU Space Cowboy, has a simple checklist too. I believe we use a cross-out for lines and highlight for veils. I believe actually in my coverage when I was talking about my sexy games, I specifically pointed out how that was part of the core book and how happy I was that safety tools were front and center in the core rulebook. I really loved that about that game. But no, so safety tools, lines and veils, technically the X card, but not so much in name. We don't use a physical card or an emoji because I don't have when I am DMing, I am usually in my disassociative GM La La Land, and I'm not looking at a chat. So I will not see an emoji until well after the problem's gone, which is not good. So we have an agreement that we will speak up, we will pause the game, we will text the GM, we will find a solution that doesn't require you to express what you're not comfortable expressing, and the game will move on. And that's worked out really well for me. I do not think you call it a timeout, pause, timeout, whatever you have to call it, whatever you're comfortable with. If a player is not comfortable being verbal about it, literally a safe word. Literally have a safe word. Just a ridiculous safe word. Smack people who joke with it, because it's a serious one, but literally you need a safe word to make the content stop so you can make sure everyone is comfortable before you continue on. That's very important to me. Safety tools don't all need to be pre-game either. One of the really important safety tools is having cooldown moments. There was a system. A scene is a scene. Scenes can end whenever. Scenes do not have to happen. The game can continue. There was a safety tool that we used. I don't use it very much now because of logistics, but it was called Roses and Thorns, which was an after-game discussion where someone talks about one thing they really enjoyed and something they did not. It doesn't have to be something that ruined the game for them, just something that gave kind of a weird vibe, and it allowed players a space to verbalize both their positive and their negative thoughts as a sort of, not to sexualize this, but aftercare. One of the reasons why I genuinely believe that TTRPG is so popular in the queer community is how much of it involves being vulnerable with another human being, and how much the kink community, the safety guide rails that have been developed for the kink community are useful for TTRPG. Like, oh, you meant more in the no matter what kind of dungeon we're in. Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but no, generally the crossover between queer TTRPG players and the kink community is kind of a little too strong to ignore. I think psychologically it's fascinating. This isn't a sexy thing. I'm not comparing TTRPG to sex. Just the communication that is used to make sure everyone is safe is similar between the two, and I think it's fascinating. Raglan asks, what are some aspects that make a great player? Oh, Raglan got 3 questions in one. What are some aspects that make a great player? What are some aspects that make a great GM? And what are some aspects that make a great system? Safety tools and the ability to verbalize discomfort is my answer for all three. Games that have safety tools baked in are amazing. Even if not every table uses them, just having them in the book as an introduction to people who may not have access to them elsewhere, I think is fantastic. GMs who push safety tools are fantastic. Players who respect or even ask for safety tools are great. Lol, I'm a bad player then. You're fine, Jen. I got a game in dev that literally mechanizes role-playing between players for benefits, and yeah, it explicitly is like you need a safety checklist. Honestly, I think it's required for any game. For any game, I understand wanting a game to have brevity, so it's better as a product. But also, there's some stuff that I'm like, at least have a link to Monty Cook Games. They gave us a license to do that. Come on, guys, just one page, just one page. I say that having not put those in any of my games up to date. Did I put it in Bing Bing Wahoo? I don't think I put it in Bing Bing Wahoo. I don't think I put it in Vampire Vigilante. I feel like I put it in one game, but I can't remember if I actually released it or if it's just sitting in my Google Doc. Anyway, other aspects include yes and. I do not like games, Dungeons and Dragons. I do not like games where the rules are a hard stop. I understand that rules need to be there to give you guidelines and guardrails, but if all of your rules say you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's not fun. That's not, you know? Similarly, players who respect the rules, so that no players, yes, sorry, that was delayed lag. It wouldn't let me leave the window. Sorry, Aya. What other aspects do I think? I think that a good GM is someone who communicates with their players, and that's in and out of game. Oh, not lag, League of Legends, lol. I have a lot of the reasons why I do scenes the way I do, the reason I do camera angles, the method in which I deliver information to the player as opposed to the character, I think is very important. If I want the fantasy of a mystery, I can't just put clues in a sandbox and expect the characters to act accordingly in a way that feels like there's slow jazz playing in the background. I have to have the audience, the players, see things the characters don't to ratchet up that tension. Maybe the players see a scene of the murder as it happens before the characters even know there is a murder. The players know there's a murder, and the players know their characters are going to encounter the scene of a crime, and they can then play their characters in that space so the fantasy is fulfilled, so the vibe is carried on by their actions. If I just said, yeah, you're in a place, what do you do? And then 20 minutes later I go, there's a dead body in that room. It's not going to feel like the opening scene to a murder mystery. It's going to feel like a point-and-click adventure, and then I've dropped a dead body on top of them. So communicating information about the adventure, about the world in and out of game, I think is the mark of a good GM. Conversely, being a player that a GM will trust with that information is also key. Way too often, I see DMs on Reddit and YouTube and Twitter ask for DMing advice on how to fix their players because they won't do this, they won't do that, they're doing this, they're doing that. And a lot of times, what they're trying to fix isn't even stuff that has happened in their game, it's stuff they're scared of happening. And my question is always, why are you playing with people that you do not trust? Right? Like, obviously, there are answers to that. They're friends of a friend. They're my sibling. My mom said I had to let them play. We play with randos all the time. We play in public spaces. But no, why are you as the GM not establishing first and foremost that your game is not the kind of game that you want them to fuck up? First and foremost, why are you not making sure that the players you are playing with can be trusted with basic information about your game world? This bleeds into people's opinion on metagaming and what metagaming actually is. Matt Coble had a video on it. Go watch that. I'm not going to bother trying to describe it here. But there's this fear that players will abuse the power you give them, so you must keep power from them at all costs. And that's not a healthy GM-player relationship. So being a GM who is willing to give that extra information to make the game a better experience, but also being a player who can be trusted to use that information to make the game better for everyone, not just for their personal gain. All right. I think we have one question left. Yeah, we have one question left. Before I answer this final question, it is almost at the 3-hour mark, so it's about time to wrap up. Does anyone in chat have any questions they want to ask me? Anything that I've talked about tonight that you want me to go back over and touch upon? You can always bother me on Twitter after stream if you don't want to derail me for another 20 minutes. Hey guys, you're the good guys, so don't do anything an MCU protag wouldn't do. Exactly. If you can't commit to the bit, why are we even here? A lot of people treat TTRPGs like an analog Skyrim. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of game if everyone is in agreement that that's how they're playing it. I love D&D stories where it's just the players completely do something that completely derails the campaign, and from that point forward, it's essentially they're flying by the seat of their pants, and the DM goes with it, as opposed to being upset about the destruction of their plot, right? I love those stories if they're done with good intentions. I don't like the stories where a DM or a player derails the campaign to the detriment of the rest of the party, but it can be good gameplay. A lot of people expect that because the expectations are not laid out well for the table they're joining. There's also a similar note. There's a phenomena of people, this is going to be a hot take, people on the internet who rules lawyer and try to min-max in Reddit threads and forums in the corners of the internet to make the perfect combination of class and race and stats and spells to allow them to break the game. A lot of that theory crafting is a solo experience. A lot of people, until the advent of the internet became big in actual plays and Discord servers became the norm for TTRPG, a lot of people's actual tangible interaction with D&D was sitting at home with a book, reading the book, and imagining what the game must be like. Not that they're inexperienced. Some people have read these books front to cover, but if their only experience is via the text and what they imagine they could do with the text, then they will go to a game expecting to be able to fulfill those fantasies, which existed in a bubble separate from the rest of the TTRPG community. I saw a thread that the one D&D ranger can help out Coffee Lock, and I wanted to scream. I think, another hot take, 5th edition Ranger is fine, but no one can agree on what fantasy 5th edition Ranger is trying to fulfill. So everyone has a different bad experience playing vanilla Ranger, which is why we have 20 variant homebrews on how to fix the Ranger. Yeah, Sorcerer Warlock multi-class that gives you infinite spell slots. Yeah, basically breaking the game. What is my best advice for new GMs? Ooh. My best advice for new GMs would be to play with friends. And remember every word in that sentence. Play with friends. Play. This is a game. You are here to have fun. Make sure that you understand what everyone at your table thinks is fun, and then make sure that the chance for that fun to be had is presented to them. And that includes yourself. That includes yourself, the DM. You are playing. Make sure you play with. This middle finger is very fucking important. With. You're playing with your friends. The whole dichotomy of the DM lording above the measly players. No, cut that shit out. Inspire your players with the information you give them. Withhold information if you think it'll make the tension better, but otherwise communicate. You're playing, and you're playing with friends. No matter what happens in the game, you are friends. You want your friends to have a good time. Your friends want you to have a good time. Even if you have disagreement while playing, your friendship is more important than the results of a role in a D&D game. Play with friends, and remember every word of that sentence. Anything else that I could say links back to that, or is very specific system advice or game design advice, which new players won't be interacting with until they've played a few sessions anyway. So I'm going to clip that later. I think it's actually really good. I think that's good. Also, run what excites you, not what someone else told you to. Don't run material you think is boring or inspiring. The amount of times I have talked to people who have expressed disappointment that their DM ran a setting they wanted to play in but didn't run it right. If I had a nickel, I'd have more than 2 nickels. Definitely more than 2 nickels. Because it goes back to the fantasy. You can give someone a setting guide and say, run this. But if you don't tell them what the fantasy in that setting is that you want fulfilled at the table, they could spend a year running that setting by the book and accidentally never touch on the one cool thing you actually wanted to interact with. You absolutely need to communicate what you want, and conversely, you need to make sure that the GM is excited about it as well. When I run games, I usually tell them straight up like, hey, my games are in a fantasy goofy world. The fantasy is cartoon/anime shenanigans, but also you're a knight or whatever. There might be a dragon, okay? I don't say we are running this setting and then tell them nothing about it. No. I tell them what the fantasy I like about the setting so they know what to expect, and hopefully they verbalize to me also what they want to have fulfilled, what they find fun, so I can fulfill their fantasy as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead and read the last question. If you have any others, I really appreciate that you give us a vibe to live off of. It's not always perfect. A lot of times people still misunderstand the vibe until the game starts, and then they're like, oh, I didn't expect this at all. Onslaught says, I had a group dissolve and never played Ttrpg again because I thought I had to run the board. Oh, Mines of Phandelver? Lost Mine of Phandelver? Mine of Phandelver is fine as an adventure. The information in Lost Mines is fine, but the order in which it is given to the GM, which translates to the order the information is given to the players, makes it feel dry as fuck. The one 5e adventure that I ran start to finish was Lost Mine of Phandelver. And we had a good time. I played with seasoned players. I was the newbie GM and they had already played the game, so the rules weren't an issue. But the issue we ran into consistently was me reading the next section and coming back and being like, hey, this should have been told to me 3 chapters ago, so I could have seeded this. So this is going to feel complete, like the communication I had with my players was already really good, I feel. So the players could then be like, oh, this would have made a lot more sense if we had known about it before now, so now we can play. I just thought the situation was uninspired. Human bandits in a basement. Yeah, no. Human bandits in a basement is very uninspired. But if you knew that this town has been ravaged by bandits who basically own everything, and the government's not doing anything to stop them, and finding their hideout and cutting off the criminal activity at the bud is paramount to saving this potentially thriving location, that has a lot more tension to it. How the game, how the story is actually presented to you is you fight some goblins, you show up in town, here's all these people you might meet in town, and then a day later, some bandits walk up to you and try to rough you a bit. Like, your first interaction with the Red Bandits, or whatever they're called, is they just waltz up and fuck with you because they can. And that's supposed to be... No. You need to show how in dire straits the town is. Not just the people in town complaining with the bandits. You need to see boarded up houses from people who have left. You need to see the propaganda first and foremost. You need to hear people arguing over what to do. Show, don't tell. Thank you, Tav. Thank you, Tav. Mine of Phandelver could be a much better adventure, and there's so many fixes for it on the internet. But the way that Wizards of the Coast gives their adventures to GMs is really, really rough. And Phandelver is a short adventure. I skimmed through, not to set into Avernus. What's the first adventure of the Tiamat books? Because they had 2 or 3 adventure books, like thick adventure books, that were part of like an overarching Tiamat story arc. It's when they go to war. I skimmed through it, and I didn't even, if I hadn't known previously that book was leading up to the revival of Tiamat, the first third of the book is about a completely unrelated scenario that is supposed to get your party in a position to learn about the revival of Tiamat and then care about that. And I didn't even plan to run it. I was just skimming it, and I was like, oh, that Horde of the Dragon Queen. Thank you. The order and lack of flavor in how information is presented to you in official adventures is not great. Now, to be fair, I have not read any official adventure that was printed after Curse of Strahd. So maybe it's gotten better. I don't know. I have not bothered. But the introductory adventure that comes with what was the base set for the game for years is super dry and is not helpful for GMs whatsoever. The final question. What games do you like to run as opposed to games that you like to play? What games do I like to run? So the curse of the game designer is that you are never playing someone else's game. Even if I were to run See You Space Cowboy, even if I were to run Elfin Folk, because I spend so much time thinking about game design and theorizing about game design and testing out game design, I will be making calls on the fly that will irreversibly alter the tone and direction of the game I am running. And that isn't a bad thing, but it does mean that a lot of my experiences tend to be homogenized to the point where I know what works when I run, and I try to recreate that. I'll purposefully throw in something new to try to mix it up so I don't get stagnant, but the games that I like to run, any game that I run will end up being a game that I like to run because I don't really stick to rules as written, I'll be honest with you. I make a lot of changes on the fly, a lot of them. If I were to play 5e now, if I were to run 5th edition now, it would not look or feel like 5th edition, I'll be honest with you. The only thing only the flavor would stay, and even that would be out. In terms of actual systems I enjoy, I'm a big fan of hacks of What's So Cool About Outer Space, which I've written 2 games based off of. What's So Cool About Bing Bing Wahoo and What's So Cool About Vampire Vigilantes. I like that dice system. I like that. Actually, What's So Cool About Wizarding School by Elitza Ronwin? I think that was their name. Elitza Lonwin? I played it for Halloween 3 years ago. 2 years ago, rather. That was a What's So Cool About game. I like playing those games for one-shots mostly. I love lasers and feelings hacks. You can see this in my game design. It almost always starts as or ends up as a hack of lasers and feelings. My weekly game is a lasers and feelings hack that we have added house rules to make it possible to have long form play. When I do one shots, chances are it's a lasers and feelings hack. I just really like the dichotomy of the single number 2 stat game design, specifically because the names of those 2 stats can greatly change how the tone of the game is played. I have a couple of free one-shot short hacks, 1-page hacks. There's Smash and Brothers, about being the fictional toyetic recreation of another character and what that means for you. Then I have Chaos and Control, which is my Sonic the Hedgehog themed lasers and feelings hack. I've hacked the heck out of Steel and Spirit. The game that I'm working on right now, previously known as Bangarang Bay, is called Daring and Dreaming, which is a lasers and feelings hack. I just absolutely adore it. It's simple, it's fairly easy to grasp, and because of that dichotomy, it's less about your character having physical characteristics that allow them to accomplish set tasks, and more about whether or not the tone of the story you're telling will allow you to succeed at what you're trying to do, which I think is a much more powerful dice mechanic. It's still giving you success or failure, but the reasoning isn't you weren't strong enough, you weren't smart enough, you weren't cool enough. Wait, what the fuck? How did I not know you did Chaos and Control? Did you download Chaos and Control? Yeah, it's very unfinished, isn't it? But no, I did Chaos and Control, and basically Daring and Dreaming is the evolution of Chaos and Control into a non-branded IP that I can control. So, Bangarang Bay was meant to be Sonic Rush Adventure, the TTRPG, but I dipped out of that when I realized that most of the fantasies that I was trying to recreate with it were drawing from Polynesian cultures that they didn't have a right to touch, and ergo, I didn't have a right to touch. I learned a lot about Tiki culture very quickly and how shit it is, and I don't know why I'm surprised, but say lovey. But yes, I made Chaos and Control. Daring and Dreaming is that with a leveling system, and get ready for that. I'm excited for that. But no, lasers and feelings hacks really excite me. I find it really hard to get excited for large games anymore. If I buy a large game rule set, it is not because the mechanics inspire me, it's the flavor of the game setting. So, for example, what was that game, Land of Something, that Exalted Press did a Kickstarter for before? It was like a Muppets, Muppets Fraggle sort of fantasy world, Land of or something like that. I looked at the dice mechanics for that, and I said, not really interested. I looked at the class mechanics for that and said, not really interested. Any sort of big games, I'm not interested in reading them to learn to play them. Large games or crunchy games, that's a good... Both. Land of Eam. I was close. Wrong vowel. I do not play crunchy games. Not for lack of enjoyment. I have never had the option to play in a crunchy game. I have been invited to one crunchy game, and it is it is the one D&D horror story that I can actually say was horrific. Like, I've had like minor quibs and quabbles with people at different game tables, but the one game, it wasn't even D&D, it was Earth Dawn. It was Earth Dawn. I was invited to play in an existing Earth Dawn campaign because it was being held at my house and I wasn't initially invited. But I made cupcakes for them. At that point in time, me and my sibling-in-law, Kaiju, were living in the same house, okay? I moved to Florida, and my girlfriend at the time and their twin, we all got an apartment together. We rented a trailer. And the house was basically split in half, where the sibling had one half and we had the other, and then there was the communal areas, and like, it was fine. We all liked each other for the most part. We were getting used to each other. We were good roommates. But the sibling was into TTRPGs, and for the most part, it was hosted at other people's houses. So they would leave and come back like 4 hours later, happy, and that's all I knew about it. But then they started having to have it at our place just because of logistic reasons. So they would come over with like 5 or 6 people, and they would play all these different games. There was a D&D game, there was an Earth Dawn game, there was a Pokemon game. It was like 3 nights a week. And I would consistently make them food. I would make cupcakes. I would make snacks. I would be a good little host, and I would like feed them for their game nights and then say, have a good night, guys. Enjoy your game. And I'd go in my room and not be included. Well, the players were like, hey, we should really invite Gada to one of these games. He makes us cupcakes every single week. And the DM was like, fine, I'll invite him to the game. So he invited me to the game. And I said, oh, well, I don't know anything about the setting, the system, or the adventure. So I'm not going to be able to play like this coming Thursday. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll send you all the stuff. Just read through it. And when you're ready, we'll introduce you to the group. And I said, okay, absolutely. So he sends me, I shit you not, 15 different PDFs. He sent me what I assume were the core rules, various splat books, possibly even the GM book, and then I guess a couple of novels. Are there Earth Dawn novels? I didn't get through a single one of those PDFs. I barely got through the core rules because the game was 4 days out from when he invited me. Okay? So I did not have time. I had my day job. I did not have time to learn the setting. I did not have time to learn the rules. And when game day came around, I made cupcakes as expected. And I told the DM to his face, hey, I did not have time to read the rules and make my character. May I sit down at the table and listen to you guys play while I'm reading the rules and making a character? And if I think I've got it and there's a place for me, then yeah, I'll jump in. But if not, then I'll jump in next session. And the DM said to my face, that is perfectly fine. You know where this is going, chat. You know where this is going. I had barely gotten my basic stats written down, and the GM took that as the chance to have Derek jump in. I just doxed myself. Derek, this happened to Derek, not Gada. He saw the perfect chance for my character to jump in. I hadn't read the lore. I was just looking through the how to make a character section, going step by step, following how it says to do it, so I understood it. It was not fine. It was not fine. The DM introduces my character mid-dungeon. All the other players assumed, logically, that I knew what the setting was about. For those of you who don't know, Earth Dawn is like post-magic apocalypse, where people go crazy, and the only way to know if someone is infected or not is whether or not they're able of producing art. People in this world will play music and do hobbies as proof that they are not infected by this madness, because once they are infected, their ability to create slowly fades away. So anyone could be one of these like magic zombie things and not know it until it's too late. So they find my character tied up in the middle of a dungeon, of an abandoned dungeon, and all the players have no reason not to believe that this is something planned between me and the DM. That my character is to be distrusted. The DM didn't tell anyone until the start of that session that I was considering joining them. So they treat my character with suspicion, and me, not knowing the scenario, try to assure them that I'm a cool guy. I do that by deciding in the moment that I was going to roleplay Honeydew the Dwarf from the Yogscast. I am a dwarf, and I'm digging a hole. Diggy, diggy hole. If you know anything about Earth Dawn, you know that that character does not fit in Earth Dawn. Does not fit in Earth Dawn. Nope. My character motivation was to go to the moon. I was in that dungeon to find loot to help me on my quest to travel to the moon. The players were intrigued and charmed, and they were willing to run with it. The GM continued running the adventure as intended, which why didn't a single person at a table tell me, oh, where the dragons are? That would have made things so much better. What do you mean there's lunar dragons in Earth Dawn? What do you mean there's dragons on the fucking moon? That's so cool. No, didn't happen. So the DM continues to run the adventure. It's a module, right? He runs the module by the book. He's a DM, and this is probably why I have this opinion, who views the world as objective. If the book says this is what the world is, that's what the world is, and whatever happens, happens. Regardless of whether or not there was a lack of communication between the GM and the players, regardless of where it was a lack, you found their skeletons on Mars. Oh no. Oh no. There was a puzzle wherein in this abandoned dungeon, there was a stage, presumably for plays or announcements. And the closer we got to the stage, the louder this disembodied voices were. And they were arguing with each other, okay? And the players are like looking all over the stage. They're checking the stage. They're like, what are these voices? What is this puzzle? What does this mean? Because it means something. So after 20 minutes of nothing happening, of literally point and click adventuring, we mess with this. Does anything happen? The DM says no. We mess with that. Does anything happen? The DM says no. Just waiting for us to figure out what octopi to tickle in order to make the thing happen. I decide I'm going to be helpful. So I say, my character has an idea. The DM had described the previous room was what was left of where they grew crops for this underground society. And there were some crops that were still fresh, which was its own puzzle we hadn't touched yet. But he explicitly described that there were tomato plants. So my character retrieved tomatoes and gave a tomato to each person in the party, and then pointed at the stage and says, these ghosts cannot move on because no one has told them how shit their act is. So if we throw these tomatoes at these ghosts, they will finally achieve peace and be able to leave this mortal plane. And every other player, not even character, every player in the party, this is my side of the story. So obviously it paints me in a good light, but I know for a fact that those players were thrilled with this plan. They knew it would not work. They knew it was not the solution, but they were tired of not finding the solution. And they said, yes, we will spend 5 minutes to throw tomatoes at this empty stage. So all of us turned and we booed the stage and we threw the tomatoes, and the DM just stood there like deflated, like visibly upset that this happened, okay? So we throw the tomatoes, and I turn to the DM and I say, does that change anything? Knowing full well it wouldn't. And he said, well, you are all standing at this point of the dungeon, which according to the book is out of hearing range of the voices. So from your perspective, they've gone silent. My character goes, we did it! We solved the puzzle! And the players loved it. The very next room, we open the door. There are 6 skeleton archers. We roll initiative. All the skeletons go first. Every last one of them hits my character. My character is permadead. The table erupted into angry shouts. They were very upset. I was very upset. I left the table. I thanked the DM for allowing me to join, but I don't think a game where permadeath is so easy is a game that I would enjoy playing with. So I left. The players argued with him. He pointed into the book where the 6 skeleton archers were and what my character was first in line, so I was first to get pincushioned. But at no point was that expectation of the world setting conveyed to me. I barely knew how to roll dice at that point. By the time I was thrown into this game, I'm actively flipping through the book trying to read the rules after he's introduced me to continue playing. Not to speak too badly of the other players, but their solution was to continue playing in my house for 3 more months without me, and they gave my character sheet, my incomplete character sheet, to another person who played my character great. He had a good time playing my character in my house, eating my cupcakes for 3 more months while I laid awake in bed the next room over feeling very excluded. It was not a good time. Nope. Now, Earth Dawn is probably a fine series. I have no interest of getting back into it. And despite still having a professional... Can I help you, sir? Can I help you? The moment I look at you, you run off. I see how it is, Brisket. Yeah, no, it was a nightmare scenario. I still have a professional relationship with this man, and we still talk to each other about game stuff, but most of the time, I'm just smiling and nodding because the way he describes things, I know is not how they're actually going down at his table. And he seems to have no self-awareness of how some of the things he says comes across. And I don't even know he fully understands how badly that one game affected me. I'll never tell him. I have no interest in telling him at this point. It's been years. And I didn't have the ability to communicate my upset at the time. But that's my horror story. And why I will never touch Earth Dawn again. It's not why I don't play crunchy games. I just don't have the opportunity. And when I have had the opportunity, it's never with people who I trust enough to play a crunchy game with. You know what I mean? Like, I would play 5th edition with my roommate Seth. I trust that Seth would treat me well, and he knows that I would treat him well. But I wouldn't, like, play Shadowrun with randos at a game store. Like, I could never do that. I couldn't do that. As it is, running with players who I've never played with before is nerve-wracking. The first time that I ran a game for Come and Go Tavern, I was like visibly sweating on my end. I was so terrified that I would fuck it up because we didn't have that rapport yet. When I invited Duffy to play in the Sonic one-shot and then later in the Christmas one-shot, all I knew was that Duffy Austin had written a Tokusatsu Ttrpg and had his own community underneath him. And I was like, if I fuck this up, I'm going to ruin this for him completely. Well, thank you, Tav. I'm glad it ended up fine. My amazingness does not preclude the possibility that my GM style will rub wrong against your player style and end in a bad experience. So I refuse to assume that any game that I run will be a good game just because I'm running it. You got to keep yourself humble, okay? You got to keep yourself humble. This goes back to the parasocial thing. Be aware of how much power you have and how easily you can abuse it so you do not abuse it. Always be aware. I sound a little paranoid sometimes, but if I can be a smidge vulnerable, I haven't ever hid this, but I grew up in a very religious household, and I held some very homophobic and transphobic beliefs, and was very verbal about those beliefs until I hit adulthood. Like, straight up until I was like 22, I held a lot of beliefs until I had very quickly been corrected, and a lot of things made sense very quickly. So a lot of the fire and brimstone things that I say on Twitter is a overcorrection from how I used to be. You would not have liked younger Gata. He was very misinformed in a way that hurt a lot of people, regardless of his intentions. He was led wrong by the adults in his life, but he did still cause a lot of harm. So, on the Crunchy Game subject, would you be interested in playing a tester session of Lancer if you were invited? Yes. Would have to. The scheduling would be the bitch, but absolutely, I would love to play Lancer with you, Tavern. Yeah. Okay, noted. Got it. All right. Well, that's all the questions. It is 8:30, which is past our normal stopping time, so that's great. I'm not going to raid anybody. I don't know who I would even rate at this point. What kind of content could I connect you guys to? But yeah, that was the IRL. Once again, thank you for the book. Thank you guys so much for donating. And I hope that some of the advice that I gave in this long 3-hour rant was useful. I hope you were entertained at the very least. If you have anything else you want to ask me, you know where I am on Twitter. You guys know where I am on Discord. Join my Discord. Join my Discord. Get my games on itch.io. Follow me on Twitter for my D&D hot takes. Apparently I'm going to have a long thread about doing N64 collectathons in analog form. So look forward to that. I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye, everyone. I'm just going to wait for the lag to catch up. Bye-bye. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining me. All right. Bye, guys.